Hello there and welcome back to the Sleep Science, where tonight you're climbing aboard the softest, slowest spaceship your imagination can build, and you're about to leave everything you've ever known behind. The Earth spins quietly below you, draped in a blanket of clouds, city lights flickering like bioluminescent algae floating in a dark ocean. The engines beneath you purr like a sleeping cat. The blue atmosphere curves into the black, and space begins just inches above your window. You're weightless now, suspended, and you're not just going to space tonight, you're going through every galaxy we can possibly see, all 2 trillion of them. Yes, trillion. You probably won't survive this, but don't worry, we'll go slow. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, what city or tiny village are you watching from tonight, and what time is it there? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're starting from low Earth orbit, about 400 kilometers above the surface, just a smidge beyond where the International Space Station floats. The blue marble is behind you now, growing smaller with each second. The continents begin to flatten into unrecognizable shapes, and the Pacific Ocean looks like a spilt puddle of ink. There's a strange comfort to the silence up here. No air to carry sound, just the occasional faint buzz from your control panel and the whisper of your own breath inside the helmet. Well, if you had a helmet, in this version, you're the ship. You're the vessel. Smooth, gliding, thought-powered, that kind of thing. No clunky spacesuit to interrupt the flow. Ahead, the stars don't twinkle. They blaze. Tiny but sharp, like diamonds crushed into black velvet. The moon is just to your right, pale and cratered, already half forgotten as you aim your bow toward interstellar space. You push past the orbit of geostationary satellites, hundreds of them, locked in time with the turning Earth, blinking steadily like electric fireflies. Each one carries secrets, surveillance, TV broadcasts, weather reports, corporate data. And you carry none of that. You're here to drift, to witness, to escape the gravity of meaning. Past the moon now, past the tangle of satellites and rocket corpses and lost bolts that form our chaotic exosphere junkyard. You coast through the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, where dust from decades of space probes still lingers in invisible halos. The vast distance from Earth to the edge of the solar system takes real-world spacecraft decades. But your journey bends time like a wet noodle. You're already skimming Neptune's orbit. You barely wave at Uranus. Yes, go ahead, chuckle. Out here, the sun shrinks from a warm disk to a sharp point. One solitary bead in the endless Black Sea. Solar wind fades into silence. You pass the orbit of Voyager 1, the most distant human-made object, still bravely transmitting data back to Earth from 23 billion kilometers away. That little machine, launched in 1977, has become a myth in motion. It carries a golden record of our species. Music, greetings, math, a kind of hopeful mixtape for aliens who'll probably never listen. Historians still argue whether including Chuck Berry was wise. You don't stop for Voyager, you nod and move on. It's time to cross into the Oort Cloud, the true edge of our solar system. Here, you slow down, just a little. The emptiness is thick, that's an oxymoron, but out here, it makes sense. Icy relics drift in the dark like forgotten marbles at the bottom of a cosmic bathtub. Some of them have been sleeping for billions of years, knocked loose only by a rare gravitational nudge. If you listen closely, and I know that's a strange thing to say in space, you can almost hear the creak of ancient silence. The Oort Cloud isn't a disk like the planetary orbits, it's a bubble, a shell, a ghost sphere, and it stretches for a light year in every direction. You're still technically under the sun's gravitational influence out here, though just barely. You coast past comets that haven't moved in millennia. They rotate slowly, like lost timepieces, their icy tails dormant until some future journey sends them arcing inward again. And then something strange happens. You feel the tug ease. The sun's pull no longer grips your hull, your imagined poetic hull. You've crossed a boundary not many speak of, the heliopause, the place where the solar wind gives up, where interstellar space begins. You're free now, and yet it's terrifying. Because out here, there's no center, no map. The stars don't align themselves into constellations anymore. They just scatter. You suddenly understand why ancient sailors feared the open sea. You turn back once just to look. The sun is gone. not too dim to see now, hidden among 10,000 other pinpricks. Earth isn't even a whisper anymore, and though you know home is still there, still turning, still arguing about lunch and money and weather, it no longer belongs to you. You're no longer a citizen of Earth, you're a traveller of galaxies, and yet you're still so small. Even now you haven't left your local bubble. In the grand scale, you're a speck just outside your star's doorstep. The observable universe is 93 billion light-years across, maybe more, and you're only about a single light-year out. But don't worry, we're not measuring by normal speeds anymore. You move with narrative propulsion now. You travel on imagination's highway, and it doesn't obey physics. A passing fragment of ice tumbles nearby. Its surface bears odd patterns, lines that look like writing. Maybe it's just fracture lines from countless freeze-thaw cycles. Or maybe, just maybe, it's graffiti left by some ancient traveller, far older than your species. Kilroy was here, but in alien glyphs. You laugh at the thought, though no one hears you. That's the best kind of laugh sometimes. As you continue, something flickers in the corner of your perception, a thin, glimmering thread between two distant stars. You chase it for a moment, unsure if it's real or just a trick of relativistic motion. There are theories, you know, that cosmic strings, infinitesimal yet dense defects in space-time, might still linger from the Big Bang. Historians still argue whether such structures ever existed, or if they're just wishful math. But your journey's only beginning. One star down, about 200 billion trillion to go, and the next one is only 4.37 light-years away. Just a hop. The engine hums and you lean forward into the void. You're gliding now, coasting gently through the distant frost-rimmed outskirts of our solar system. Ahead of you stretches the Oort Cloud in full, a spherical hush of icy debris, each piece a frozen echo of creation. You can't see much here, not in the traditional sense. The sun is a dim pinprick buried behind a fog of particles and forgotten rocks. These aren't your dramatic comets with wild flaming tails. No, these are the cold ones, the ancient ones, objects that haven't moved more than a few kilometers in a million years. Some of them are the size of small mountains, others are barely more than frozen gravel. But together they form a ghostly boundary, our solar system's final whisper before the interstellar dark. It's quieter here, if that's even possible in the soundless vacuum. Quieter not because there's less to hear, but because there's less to imagine. You pass by a lone object the size of a school bus. It rotates slowly, casting long shadows over itself as it turns. A crust of ammonia ice clings to it, cracked and brittle. Once, perhaps, it came close enough to the inner system to warm ever so slightly, maybe even shed a tail. But not anymore. Not for millions of years. Now it's just floating here, barely tethered to the sun's gravity, doing the cosmic equivalent of staring out the window lost in thought. And then there's Sedna. Ah, Sedna. You drift closer to it, not to stop, but just to look. This dwarf planet is one of the strangest members of our solar system, parked in an orbit so wide and distant it takes more than 11,000 Earth years to make one lap. Discovered in 2003, it has a rust-coloured hue, as if it were left too long in the cosmic rain. Except there is no rain here, only time, lots of it. Historians still argue whether Sedna's bizarre orbit is the fingerprint of an undiscovered ninth planet, or the remnant of some ancient stellar encounter. Perhaps a rogue star passed close by once, disturbing everything like a rude neighbour knocking over your garden gnome on the way out. You sail past Sedna, brushing its gravity ever so lightly, and press farther outward into the shell of the Oort Cloud. Here, the idea of direction becomes more abstract. There is no up, no north, just endless variations of away. Behind you, everything you've ever known, oceans, languages, pets, taxes, is just a speck of pale dust. Ahead, the stars cluster more thickly now, unfiltered by atmosphere or city lights. You can see galaxies even without magnification, little cloudy smudges on your mind's windshield, like fingerprints on an old photograph. And now something flickers across your imaginary dashboard. You've crossed 100,000 astronomical units. That's 100,000 times the distance between the Earth and the Sun. Most spacecraft haven't even cleared 1% of this distance. Voyager 1, bless its dusty little heart, is barely nudging 160 astronomical units after nearly 50 years. But you're well past the real estate where physics still feels like home. Something drifts by your field of vision, something peculiar. Not rock, not ice, something metallic. For a second, you think it's just a trick of light, but no, it's shaped, formed, not large, maybe the size of a vending machine. Its surface is smooth, without markings. You get closer and realize it's just sitting there. No power, no signal, no story. Maybe it's one of ours, ejected long ago by a failed propulsion experiment. Or maybe it's not one of ours at all. No answers here, just a riddle in the cold, one you don't dare touch. You're nearly at the edge now, the true outer boundary of the sun's gravitational rule. Beyond this point, the stars stop calling Saul their boss. You're approaching the inner wall of the interstellar medium, that vast, almost featureless ocean that stretches between stars like an invisible soup. It's thinner than you can imagine, far emptier than the emptiest vacuum bottle on Earth, but it's not nothing. There are hydrogen atoms here, stray electrons, wandering magnetic fields, the occasional rogue planet ejected from its star system like an unwanted tenant, and still you drift, past the final chunk of ice, past the last echo of a comet that never was. You feel something shift. It's not gravity exactly, it's the absence of it, a lightness, a severing. You are, in every way that matters, no longer part of the solar system. You are free, interstellar space. And yet, your journey is still shockingly local, because out here, local means something different. Your next major destination, Alpha Centauri, the closest star system to ours, a triple star system no less. You set your course and begin to glide in that direction. 4.37 light-years of darkness ahead. Sounds long, but with your imaginary propulsion system, which is powered entirely by narrative convenience and soft soundscapes, it won't take long at all. As you travel, you start to notice things. The sky behind you isn't static. Stars shift, just a little. Parallax creeps in. You're moving fast enough now that entire constellations begin to deform. Orion's belt starts to bend. The familiar shapes you've seen since childhood lose their symmetry. You're slipping between the folds of the familiar. You pass through clouds of interstellar dust, wisps that would take millennia to collapse into anything meaningful. They glow faintly in infrared. The light they scatter is ancient, blue shifted into heat. Somewhere deep within them, stars may one day form, but not for another billion years. You think of that often out here, that everything you see is on a timer, everything is in motion, but nothing is in a hurry. There's a rogue planet up ahead, just barely warm from residual formation heat. No sun to orbit, no days, no seasons, just endless night. You give it a wide berth. The thought of a world without sunrise makes you feel heavier. You press onward. You spot a curious formation, a long, curved filament of ionized gas, stretching for hundreds of astronomical units, possibly a leftover from a supernova, possibly just a trick of plasma. Historians still argue whether these faint interstellar structures are shaped primarily by magnetic fields or by shock waves from past stellar explosions. Either way, it's beautiful. You drift through it slowly, letting it ripple past your hull like seaweed in a quiet current. And finally, Alpha Centauri grows brighter. It's not one star, but three. Alpha Centauri A and B, a pair of sun-like stars orbiting each other tightly, and off a little farther, a dimmer red dwarf, Proxima Centauri. That last one? It has a planet. At least one that we know of, Proxima B, Earth-sized, possibly in the habitable zone. You pause here, hovering above the system like a ghost peeking through a cosmic window. You wonder what its skies look like, if it has clouds, if it has oceans, if anything there is looking up, wondering about you. But no time to stop, there are more galaxies waiting. 2 trillion more, if we're being honest. You lean forward again, feeling the pull of curiosity. Your only real gravity now. The Alpha Centauri system fades behind you, tucked back into the night like a good book on a tall shelf. Ahead lies the rest of the Milky Way, and beyond that, every other galaxy we've ever glimpsed. And you're just getting started. You sail forward, deep into the interstellar gulf, where even the closest star is a distant rumour of light. The stars here are fewer, dimmer, scattered like dandelion seeds across a windless sky. This is the true void between systems, the vast nothing between solar islands. Light moves, but it doesn't hurry, and neither do you. Out here, direction is a loose suggestion. Forward is more a feeling than a vector. You begin to notice how space isn't just black. Not really. The black you thought you knew from night skies on Earth was an illusion. Light pollution trimmed it into something manageable. Out here, the blackness stretches so far, so deep it becomes textured. There are layers, shades, soft folds of nothing. Some parts are velvet thick, absorbing every trace of light. Others shimmer faintly, like someone breathed on a pane of glass. You find yourself slowing down just to look at the blackness. How often do you stop and admire nothing? A tiny flicker to your left catches your attention. At first, it seems like just another faint star, but no, it's moving. A slow arc across your trajectory. You adjust your course slightly and approach. As you close in, it resolves into a small, tightly bound binary system. 2 failed stars, brown dwarfs, orbiting each other like dance partners past their prime. They never ignited fully, never gained enough mass to blaze. Instead, they smoulder quietly, giving off just enough heat to warm a nearby cloud of gas. It's not much, but out here, it feels like finding a candle in a cave. You pass between them, so close your senses feel the tug of their twin gravities. There's a moment of distortion, a soft warping of perspective, and then you slide through, unharmed. A curious thought floats up. If life ever evolved on a planet orbiting one of these quiet stars, its nights would be very long, its sunrises dim. Maybe it would never know it lived in darkness. These dwarfs fade behind you, and you continue forward, deeper still. You're surrounded by nothing, not emptiness, but presence without form. The interstellar medium is full of dust, gas, rogue atoms, photons that haven't hit anything in billions of years. You pass through a region rich in hydrogen, cool, invisible clouds that stretch for dozens of light years. They don't glow, but your imagination lights them up like smoke drifting under street lamps. Somewhere in the middle of this haze, a new star might be gestating. Maybe several. Stars are always being born, always dying. You're just lucky enough to be in motion between their breaths. There's a moment where everything feels still, utterly still. You forget to imagine motion. It's that quiet. And then something tugs at your awareness. A sharp, sudden shift in background radiation. Ahead of you looms the remnants of a long-dead star, a supernova remnant, flung into space like a discarded crown. Filaments of glowing gas twist through the dark like fire caught in molasses. You drift through it slowly, reverently. The colours here aren't real in the visible spectrum, but if you could see in X-rays, it would burn bright blue. In infrared, it would smoulder red hot. This is where heavy elements were born. Iron, nickel, gold, uranium, all forged in the violent death of a massive star. Without supernovae, there'd be no planets, no bones, no blood, no cell phones, no wedding rings. You float past the edge of the nebula, silent, and feel a new appreciation for the cosmic recycling program. You're built from the ashes of exploded things. Stars had to die for you to wear sneakers. Weird, right? Historians still argue whether supernovae trigger star formation in nearby regions, or if they're more destructive than constructive in the long term. Either way, they leave behind beauty, and sometimes monsters. You detect the leftover core nearby, a neutron star, small as a city but more massive than the sun. If Earth were this dense, it'd be the size of a thimble. You don't get too close. Even imagination has its limits, but you watch it spin 30 times per second. A pulsar beaming invisible radiation in tight cones like a cosmic lighthouse. There's no sound in space, but if there were, it might hum. You move on. There's something soothing about the emptiness now. You begin to understand why old sailors romanticized the sea. Not the ports, not the destinations, but the nothingness in between. It's clean, honest. You spot another oddity, a long, slow arc of dust looping between 2 dead stars. Possibly the remnant of a failed planetary system, a cosmic divorce. The stars drift apart slowly, still bound by gravity but clearly done with each other. Beyond them lies a small, unlit world, another rogue planet. This one's larger, maybe Neptune-sized. You drift above it, watching auroras shimmer faintly across its upper atmosphere, caused not by solar wind but by interstellar magnetic interactions. Imagine that. A light show with no sun, just the void getting artistic. You feel something deep ahead, a gravitational nudge, soft but steady. It's not a planet, not a star. You accelerate slightly, curiosity pulling harder now, and then you see it, a black hole. It's not dramatic, no fiery disk, no glowing edge. This one's a wanderer, a stellar mass black hole drifting alone through the galaxy, invisible except for its gravitational lensing. Behind it, starlight bends, warps, a funhouse mirror in the void. You approach cautiously, letting the distortion play across your perception. For a moment, it feels like you're flying into yourself, then past. Historians still argue whether rogue black holes like this are common or just statistical flukes, but you found one, or it's found you. Either way, it's beautiful in the way a knife is beautiful, precise, honest, terrifying. You leave it behind, your momentum undisturbed. Light begins to thicken again ahead. The stars are clustering more tightly. You're entering the edge of a spiral arm, our very own Orion arm, a minor spur of the Milky Way. You're not in the galaxy proper yet, but you're getting closer. You begin to pass real stars again, not just flickers in the dark. Systems with planets, rings, moons, signs of order amid the chaos. One system pulls your attention, a bright F-type star larger than the Sun. Around it orbits a ringed gas giant, and around that, a rocky moon covered in ice and volcanoes. You hover near its upper atmosphere, watching plumes of vapor rise like geysers into space. Life here wouldn't need sunlight, just heat, just chemistry. The building blocks are already dancing. You drift on faster now, pulled toward the thickening light of the galaxy's main disk. Behind you lies everything you've seen so far: empty stretches, quiet stars, stellar corpses, rogue planets. And ahead, the spiral arms beckon. Your velocity picks up like your imagination finally got impatient. The emptiness fades. You're ready now to enter the Milky Way fully. It's time to taste the edge of the storm. You coast toward the first blush of brightness, a slow acceleration as the dark begins to fold into colour and density. Stars no longer hang like lonely beads in the black. Now they thicken, clump, organise themselves into something grander. You're entering the Orion arm, a minor spiral limb of the Milky Way, but from here, there's nothing minor about it. You're approaching the galactic suburbs, neighbourhoods of stars, glowing clouds of gas, and a traffic jam of celestial bodies all moving in lazy circles around the Milky Way's centre. Ahead of you, the stars become so dense you can no longer count them. They shimmer in layers, like city lights seen through fog, and each one is a system, a possible home, a forgotten drama, a quiet fire burning alone. You're floating into a vast stellar sea, and suddenly space doesn't feel so empty anymore. Alpha Centauri fades far behind you now, just another twinkle among millions. Up ahead, a familiar light draws your attention. Sirius, the brightest star in Earth's night sky. You approach it slowly, and even now from the inside it looks like a floodlight held behind frosted glass. It's actually a binary system, Sirius A, a hot main sequence star, and its companion Sirius B, a white dwarf the size of Earth but with nearly the Sun's mass. You circle them briefly, watching the tight orbit, feeling the ghostly tension of a massive star long gone. Sirius B used to be something enormous. Now it's a smouldering ember, dense enough that a teaspoon of its material would outweigh a mountain. And just like that, you drift on. Sirius isn't your stop tonight. You graze through the local bubble, a cavity in the interstellar medium carved out by supernovae millions of years ago. It's oddly clear here, a quiet corridor of thin gas and warmth left behind by dying stars. Historians still argue whether this void has shielded Earth from nearby cosmic radiation, or merely delayed the inevitable. Either way, it's a welcome reprieve, a pocket of emptiness inside the crowd. You cruise past Barnard's star, a red dwarf just 6 light years from home, glowing like a dying ember. It flickers slightly as you pass, a reminder that even the smallest stars hold long, slow-burning lives. Red dwarfs like this one can live for trillions of years, long after the brighter, flashier stars burn out. If the galaxy had grandparents, they'd live around stars like Barnard's. Then there's Betelgeuse. You see it before you feel it. A red supergiant swollen to such size that if it replaced our sun, it would swallow Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars in one gulp. You hover near its bloated edge, not daring to drift closer. Its surface churns with loops of plasma the size of continents, and beneath that, chaos. The whole star seems to breathe, expanding, contracting, a heartbeat measured in centuries. Betelgeuse is dying. Any century now, maybe even this one, it will go supernova. A farewell explosion that will make it outshine the moon for weeks, maybe months. Historians still argue whether it has already exploded, and we're simply waiting for the light to reach us. There's something both thrilling and dreadful in that. A cosmic event already complete, unfolding invisibly, with us waiting like characters who missed the climax of the story. And you? Well, you don't wait. You glide on, the shape of the Orion arm stretching wider now, curving gracefully through the galaxy. You pass nebulae that glow in colours only instruments can translate. The Orion Nebula, your namesake waypoint, is a stellar nursery. You pause to drift through it. The gas is rich here, dense, ionized, lit from within by young stars. They crackle and pulse, sending ultraviolet light bouncing off hydrogen clouds like strobes in a cosmic nightclub. Here, stars are being born. You see one forming, a protostar, still wrapped in the embrace of its parent cloud. It's drawing gas into itself, growing hotter, heavier. You feel it, not heat, but gravity. The slow, magnetic pull of mass becoming self-aware. You want to reach out to cradle it, but you don't. This moment isn't yours. You're just passing through. Behind it, the trapezium cluster glitters like a handful of diamonds flung into fog. Young stars, brilliant, overachieving, short-lived. They'll go out in a few million years, but for now, they blaze with the enthusiasm of youth. You remember what that felt like. Kind of. Onward. You dive deeper into the arm. Every second, new stars whip past you. Some young and yellow like the sun, some blue and furious, living fast and dying young. Others red and quiet, curling in on themselves like old monks. You pass close to a star system with a ringed planet that spins on its side, likely the result of a cataclysmic impact. Its rings tilt like a carnival ride, catching starlight and tossing it like confetti. Then you spot a planetary system that makes you pause. Several rocky planets, all lined up close to their star. One of them is blue, not just in colour but in feel. You skim above its clouds. There's water here, maybe continents, maybe just archipelagos. There's something, not Earth-like, but familiar. It's probably lifeless. Most of them are. But for a moment you imagine something stirring beneath the ocean. A flick of movement. A question. You don't get an answer, but you linger just a little longer than you did at the others. The arm begins to thicken now, packed with dense star clusters. Tight groups of hundreds or thousands of stars bound together by gravity, glowing like bonfires in the dark. You pass through MM41, a beautiful open cluster below Sirius, where the stars hang in loose formation like lanterns in a parade. Most are hot, young, defiant. You coast silently through the centre, a ghost among fireworks. Then far off you glimpse something familiar. Home, not Earth exactly, but the sun's neighbourhood. The shape of the Orion arm curving backward. You realise how far you've come, how small the solar system is, a dot, a whisper. The arm itself is only a tiny part of the Milky Way, one branch of the spiral, and even it dwarfs everything you've ever known. You press onward, picking up speed. You're not just moving through stars now, you're weaving between histories. There are stars here that formed before Earth had land. Others formed when humans first tamed fire. Every single one of them has had time to live entire lives, planets to orbit, moons to spin, dust to catch, perhaps even civilizations to rise and vanish without ever being known. You begin to understand what makes the galaxy beautiful isn't just its size, it's the scale of its indifference. It keeps going, whether you watch or not. It doesn't need your awe, but it lets you feel it anyway. Ahead lies the heart of the Milky Way. The spiral arms tighten, the stars burn hotter, and something waits in the centre, massive, invisible, patient. But for now you keep drifting, a passenger on a dream. The light grows thicker, the spiral arm narrows around you, curving inward toward a glittering whirlpool of gravity and motion. You ride the Orion arm like a current now, weaving between stars as if they were buoys on a cosmic tide. The Milky Way is revealing its shape more clearly the deeper you drift. No longer a smear of light, but a structure, an organism, a spiral galaxy 200,000 light-years across, spinning with the grace of a dancer too big to ever be seen in full from within. You're still in one limb, still in one spiral, and it is vast. Ahead, stars form chains, alignments, and scatterings. They're not arranged by design, but by gravitational compromise. You begin to see the architecture of star formation. Clusters wrapped in ionized gas, dense knots where molecular clouds collapse, ribbons of stellar nurseries strung along the arm like garlands. You float beside one such cloud now, a Bock globule, small and dark, absorbing light. It looks like an ink blot, drifting through a watercolor sky. Inside, a protostar is beginning to flicker. You wonder if one day someone will orbit that future sun and never know how close you once passed. You press on, guided by the shape of the spiral arm. The galactic plane thickens. There's more dust here, more gas, more light. You pass close to the Carina Sagittarius arm, where massive O-type stars burn blue and hard. These are the giants, the rock stars of the galaxy. They live only a few million years, dying in brilliant, defiant explosions. You see one nearing its end, shedding layers like a molting beast. Its surface is turbulent, cracked with energy, surrounded by a bubble of cast-off material glowing faintly in the dark. Historians still argue whether such massive stars truly form alone or always within tight clusters. Either way, they don't live long enough to make many friends. You slip through the chaos like a thread through a tapestry. There's a beauty here. Yes, the colours, the light. But more than that, there's a rhythm. Stars form in spirals, not randomly. They clump along shock fronts created by galactic rotation. You begin to see it faintly, the same way you might see waves moving through a wheat field. You realise the arm isn't just a place, it's a process. A sudden brightness ahead makes you slow. You're entering a starburst region, an area of unusually high star formation, possibly triggered by a previous supernova or a collision with a passing cloud of gas. It glows with chaotic energy. Everywhere you look, new stars are being born. Radiation pulses outward in layers, heating the dust into glowing veils. You drift through this nursery slowly, reverently, watching stars emerge like fireflies from a blanket. And in the midst of this vibrant chaos, you find a curiosity, a Herbig Haro object, a jet of gas ejected by a young star, shooting out at hundreds of kilometers per second. It carves a path through the interstellar medium, glowing as it slams into surrounding material. The jets are nearly symmetrical, like wings, and for a moment you wonder if someone, somewhere, once mistook these for angels. Wouldn't be the strangest misunderstanding we've ever had. You navigate around a blue-white star with a ring of debris forming the early stages of planetary accretion. You see clumps, spirals, collisions. You imagine how, millions of years from now, this could be a solar system. Maybe one with life, maybe not. For now, it's just raw ingredients stirred but not yet baked. You drift closer and watch a protoplanet smash into another, a slow-motion collision of rock and iron. There's no explosion in space, no sound, just force, pressure, friction, and dust. You back away, respectfully. It's not your fight. Now you're deep within the spiral arm. The star density is high. There are systems on every side, some wide and orderly, others cluttered and chaotic. You float past an ancient white dwarf surrounded by the shattered remains of what might once have been a planetary system. The debris field circles it like a haunted memory. This star has already died. It used to be something. Now it's just waiting to fade away entirely. You can't help but notice how stars, for all their variety, follow a certain life script. Birth in clouds, middle age in main sequence calm, death in collapse or fading. But each one tells the story slightly differently. Some rage against the end, some go quietly, and some leave messes behind. Ahead now, a bright cluster packed with stars. Too many, too close. You've found a globular cluster, one of the galaxy's relics. These are old, like older than most of the stars in the disk. You're staring at a ball of hundreds of thousands of stars bound tightly by gravity, all humming with the glow of ancient hydrogen fusion. Some of these stars are nearly as old as the universe itself. You pass through slowly, overwhelmed by the density, the sheer volume of starlight. There's no night here, no shadow, just illumination. Historians still argue whether globular clusters formed before galaxies or after. whether they're the original building blocks or side products of cosmic evolution. Either way, they feel sacred, like shrines. You don't linger long, you're not sure if you belong in this place of elders. Leaving the cluster, you catch a glimpse of a high-velocity star on the edge of the arm, moving faster than anything nearby. A runaway star ejected from a binary system after its companion went supernova. It's been flung out like a stone from a slingshot. Alone now, hurtling toward the galactic edge. You follow it briefly, not to stay, just to understand the shape of its solitude. Then you turn back. You pass another red giant, this one quiet, bloated, its outer layers expanding softly into space. A gentle death. Not every star dies in fire. Some just exhale themselves into the void. Around it, a planetary nebula begins to form, a glowing bubble of expelled gas lit by the white-hot core at the center. You move through it like a swimmer beneath the surface of a jellyfish, and everything turns pale green, then violet, then transparent again. And now the Orion arm is thinning. You've passed through its brightest clusters and densest clouds. The stars begin to spread out again, forming corridors of relative darkness between luminous halls. You're nearing the edge of this spiral limb. The path bends subtly, leading you toward the galactic interior. You glance back once more. The Orion arm stretches behind you like a ribbon unraveling. Somewhere in that light, the sun spins. Earth spins. Life happens. But here, at the far end of the spiral, you feel that home is no longer a place. It's a direction. Ahead lies the galactic center. The density will rise again. The stars will blaze hotter. The black holes will grow bolder. But first you must cross the in-between. The silent paths between arms. The backroads of the galaxy. You're gliding now between the arms, between the structured radiant lanes of the spiral galaxy, into the quiet in-between. It's not empty, not really, but it feels different. Like walking from a bustling city into the soft outskirts of silence. The stars spread out here, their densities lower, their chatter fainter. You move like a whisper, a thought in transit, heading toward the heart of the Milky Way. The galactic core looms ahead, not visible yet, but you feel its pull, not gravitational, not even metaphoric, just the weight of everything pulling you inward. As you slip through the interarm space, the temperature of your journey changes. Not physically. Imagination doesn't worry about thermodynamics, but emotionally. There's a solemnity here, like walking into a cathedral where no one speaks above a murmur. You pass an ancient red dwarf star with a single exoplanet circling close, tidal-locked and dim. The night side is forever frozen, and the day side bakes in relentless sunlight. You wonder what a civilization would be like if it had to live forever in twilight, hugging the narrow ring between fire and ice. Farther on, you encounter something rare, a planetary system around a neutron star. You slow your glide and let the bizarre geometry come into focus. The star itself is tiny, spinning rapidly, so fast it would fling you off if not for its immense gravity. It pulses like a beacon, a millisecond pulsar. The light it emits flashes on and off with almost absurd precision, better than any atomic clock we've built. And around it, planets, dead ones probably, or exotic ones, formed from remnants of some cataclysm. Historians still argue whether life could ever emerge in such a hostile place, or if such systems are simply monuments to chaos. You don't land, you just observe. Curiosity is enough. Continuing on, you encounter a stream, a stellar stream, the torn remains of a dwarf galaxy once swallowed by the Milky Way. It stretches across space like a ribbon unravelling from a gift long since opened and forgotten. You drift along its path, each star a remnant of something that used to be whole. They move together, pulled into our galaxy's orbit, not in protest but in surrender. You feel oddly sentimental. There's a quiet melancholy to being part of something that's eaten everything around it. Then, colour. You begin to see the soft glow of the galactic core ahead. It's not a single point of light, but a tide of brilliance, a blur of golds and whites and hot blues. You're getting closer, and the stellar density rises again, like a tide coming in. You feel like you're approaching a campfire from far across a dark field. First you see the smoke, then the light, then the heat. Before you reach the core proper, you pass through a region of turbulence. The stars here twist and curve oddly. your perception distorts. Ahead lies the central molecular zone, a region packed with dense clouds of gas, the raw materials for new stars, all swirling in strange orbits. It's chaotic, beautiful. You hover for a moment near a massive molecular cloud the size of 100 Earths. It's cold, dark, and quiet. Within it, stars are forming, slowly, secretly wrapped in gas and dust. You can't see them directly, but you can sense them. Pressure building, gravity folding in on itself, and then quite suddenly the core reveals itself. You're in the galactic bulge now, the dense spheroid swarm of old stars packed in tight. There are no gaps between them, only gradients. This is the heart of the Milky Way, not just the center in space, but in history. Some of these stars are nearly as old as the universe. Their light began its journey when the first multicellular creatures on Earth were just learning how to be more than goo. You move slowly. The density here is unlike anything you've seen. It's not that the stars are larger or brighter, it's that they're everywhere, all around you. No matter where you look, something burns. You float past an old population of metal-poor stars, ones that formed before the universe had time to create much of anything beyond hydrogen and helium. Their planets, if they have any, likely lack the elements for life. No iron, no carbon chains, just barren rocks. Still, they shine. The radiation here is intense, not harmful to your imaginary ship body, of course, but enough that no fragile thing could last here for long. And yet stars are born even here. Clusters emerge, disks swirl. Life, or at least motion, finds a way. And then you see it. The thing at the center, it doesn't glow, it doesn't spin, it doesn't even move. But everything around it moves because of it. Sagittarius A star, a supermassive black hole. 4 million times the mass of the Sun, packed into a space smaller than Mercury's orbit. You can't see it, not really, but you can see what it does. Stars whip around it at ridiculous speeds, forming tight elliptical orbits that bend and flicker like stretched rubber bands. Gas spirals inward, forming a faint accretion disk. Not the dramatic glowing ones you see in sci-fi art, but something subtler, realer. You drift closer, careful not to cross any imaginary event horizons. It's quiet here, almost absurdly quiet. You know what's below you, what would happen if you drifted too close. You'd be stretched, unraveled, pulled into a point with no dimension. Not even time would survive you. But from here, the black hole is just a pause, a comma in the sentence of space. Historians still argue about what lies within. A singularity, a bridge to another universe, a miscalculation in Einstein's otherwise excellent math homework. No one knows. Probably. No one ever will. And that's fine. Some mysteries deserve to remain in orbit, unsolved. You look away and realize you've been holding your imaginary breath. You begin to move again, orbiting once before departing. Not because you have to, just to say you did. You circle the core and then slingshot outward, rising above the galactic plane like a swimmer surfacing for air. From above, the Milky Way spreads below you, a pinwheel of light and gravity, spiral arms like frozen waves, dark rifts of dust slicing through glowing starfields. You can see it now, see the shape of what you've only imagined before, and you realize that you were always inside something too big to see. You were a cell inside an organ inside a body too large to grasp. And now you're leaving it, not forever, just for now. You aim for the edge of the disk, the place where stars grow thin and galaxies begin to feel like islands again. You're heading for the rim, the place where the Milky Way ends and the rest of the universe begins. You turn away from the core, the light fades behind you. Ahead is the edge of the spiral, and beyond that, more galaxies than you can possibly imagine. You sail now toward the edge of the Milky Way, where the disk thins and the spiral arms unravel into open space like ribbons in wind. The stars begin to drift apart again, sparse and shy, giving one another room. Here at the rim, things are quieter, not empty but contemplative. It feels like walking to the edge of a rooftop and looking over, not with fear, but with a strange kind of freedom. You've spent so long inside the galaxy that stepping toward the outside feels a little like shedding a skin. You're not leaving home exactly, but you are leaving the neighborhood. The light behind you is soft now. The galactic core has receded into a golden blur. The arms curl faintly, almost reluctant to let you go. But you keep drifting, past the last bright clusters, past the final planetary system still swirling with their own quiet dramas. There's a sense of stillness here. You pass an old red dwarf with no planets, no dust disk, just a quiet glow. It pulses faintly, like it's breathing in its sleep. This is the end of its story, and it seems content with that. Not all stars die with a bang. Some just exhale themselves out of the narrative. You notice a structure up ahead, faint, sprawling, and strangely disconnected. A group of stars orbiting the galaxy at an angle. It's not part of the disk. It hovers above it, like a memory. You've found a stellar stream again, this one from a cannibalized dwarf galaxy. Its stars were torn away over billions of years, caught and repurposed by the Milky Way. They still remember their old trajectory, even if their galaxy doesn't exist anymore. Historians still argue whether these streams will eventually blend into the galactic halo, or remain as fossil trails in the dark. You ride the edge of one for a while, moving alongside stars that seem slightly off. Different metallicities, odd movements. You can tell they weren't born here. You think of immigrants carrying their stories across borders, holding on to bits of a homeland long gone. Above and below the galactic plane now, you see halo stars. Sparse, widely scattered, each one ancient. They orbit not in the orderly spiral you've come to expect, but in great ellipses, long and slow. Some are part of globular clusters, those spherical knots of elderly stars drifting like thought bubbles around the galaxy. You dip into one again, just briefly. This one is Messier 92, M92, a ball of stars older than Earth, older than the Sun, perhaps almost as old as the Milky Way itself. The stars here are tightly packed, gravitationally loyal, still clinging to each other after all this time. And then you spot something dimmer still, something that barely qualifies as a galaxy. It's a dwarf spheroidal, one of the faint satellite galaxies clinging to the Milky Way's outskirts. The Sculptor Dwarf, perhaps, or Draco, or Leo II. It's hard to tell. These galaxies aren't made of bright spiral arms or bursting nebulae. They're quiet accumulations of old stars, strung together by gravity and habit. You pass through one like a ghost. There's no gas here, no star formation, just a soft sprinkle of ancient light still burning their slow, steady way through the eons. One of these dwarfs has a peculiar feature, an unusually high concentration of dark matter. You can't see it, of course. No one can. But the way the stars move, too fast for the visible mass, they betray the hidden structure holding them together. It's like watching dancers perform an intricate ballet and realizing someone else must be pulling the strings. Historians still argue whether these dwarf galaxies are dark matter rich by nature or just unusually preserved relics of the early universe. You just observe. That's your job now. You're truly at the rim of the Milky Way now. Behind you stretches everything you've seen. The spiral arms, the clusters, the core. Ahead, the gap between galaxies, a yawning stretch of near nothing spattered only with distant smudges of light. The stars here are so thin that they no longer define your surroundings. You could pass through a sphere of 1,000 light years and only encounter a handful. And yet, each one is a sun. Each one might have planets, moons, strange clouds, radiostatic, silence. A bright flash draws your attention. Not a star, but a hypervelocity star. A stellar outcast flung from the galactic center, possibly by a close encounter with Sagittarius A star. It's screaming across the void at over 1,000 kilometers per second. It won't orbit the galaxy again. It's gone. You watch it fade into the distance, a lone traveler with no intention of coming back. It's comforting, in a strange way. You're not the only one leaving. And then, the last edge. The galactic disk is behind you now. The stars are fewer, the sky darker. You pass through the galactic corona, a vast halo of hot, ionized gas that surrounds the Milky Way. It stretches far beyond the visible stars, invisible to the eye but glowing faintly in X-rays. This is where the galaxy truly ends, not in a hard edge, but in a fading gradient, a slow fade to black. You pause, you turn. Behind you is the entire Milky Way. For the first time you see it whole, a spiral galaxy, glowing softly, its arms unfurling in quiet majesty. It's beautiful and small, so small compared to the ocean ahead. You realize it's just one of trillions, one among many. Unique, yes, but not exceptional. You feel a mixture of awe and detachment, Like walking out of your childhood home and realizing it wasn't as big as you remembered. And now the intergalactic space stretches in all directions. You're no longer in a galaxy, you're between them, floating free. It's quieter than you imagined. Stars no longer surround you. Now you see galaxies instead. Andromeda, straight ahead. Our sister, Triangulum nearby. Other, fainter smudges, scattered like thumbprints across a frosted window. This is what freedom looks like. This is what leaving home feels like. The Milky Way recedes behind you, still turning, still alive. You're no longer part of it. You're a galactic drifter now, moving toward the next light. Andromeda awaits. You're between the galaxies now, suspended in the intergalactic deep, coasting on silence so complete it seems almost solid. There's no longer a constant thrum of nearby stars, no bright disks or glowing nebula pulling at the corners of your vision. The last rays from the Milky Way fade gently behind you, diffused into the black, and what stretches ahead is distance itself, immense, quiet, and unsentimental. You're moving through what some might call the void, but it's not really empty. It's just subtle. It's like staring at the ocean on a windless night, with only the stars above and your own thoughts below. The intergalactic medium isn't a vacuum, not truly. There's hydrogen here, thin and lazy. The occasional electron, a lonely photon drifting from some ancient flash. It's all here, just stretched thin. Light from the Milky Way takes tens of thousands of years to fade completely in this space, and even now, you can feel it warming your metaphorical back, like a door left open behind you. But ahead is colder and darker. The universe begins to show its larger architecture, vastness made visible. Your target is Andromeda, the closest major galaxy to ours, and it's not even that close. 2.5 million light-years stand between the Milky Way and her spiral sibling. But you've left realism behind, remember? You're not bound by fuel or years or hunger. You move at the speed of story, of wonder. You glide across the distance like ink across water, and the universe slowly peels back its veils. The stars you pass now are not from any galaxy. They're rogues, wanderers, cast-offs from ancient mergers and galactic collisions. You pass near one, a lone sun spinning slowly in the dark, no planets, no orbit, no past. It glows in defiance of its exile. Historians still argue whether most of these rogue stars were born in galaxies and ejected violently, or whether a few formed in isolation, never belonging to anything at all. You decide it doesn't really matter. It's still shining, isn't it? Nearby you detect something colder. A planet. Large, dark, unmoored. A rogue planet drifting through the void without a sun. It's surprisingly warm on the inside, heated by radioactive decay and the leftovers of its creation. Its atmosphere is thick, trapping what little heat it has like a cosmic thermos. You glide close and peer through its cloud cover, watching storms swirl across its surface, slow, relentless, quiet. It's not lifeless, it's just alone. And that's a different thing. A little farther on, you come across a faint ribbon of gas stretching across a dozen light years. It glows in soft ultraviolet, excited by the radiation of a star that's no longer there. Light outlasts the thing that made it. You drift through the ribbon, feeling it ripple like a sigh. You're reminded that in this part of the universe, change takes its time. Everything unfolds on a timescale so vast it makes tectonic plates look like hummingbirds. And then, a sudden flash. Not bright, but precise. A pinpoint burst of gamma rays from far above your trajectory. A gamma ray burst, possibly a dying hypergiant, collapsing into a black hole, or two neutron stars finally giving up on their tight dance and merging in a final catastrophic embrace. Either way, it's a reminder. Even in the dark, there's violence. Beautiful, noble violence. The kind that makes gold and platinum. The kind that creates gravitational waves you'll never feel. You pass the faint edge of the Milky Way's dark matter halo. You can't see it, but the way your course bends tells you it's there. Like a hand beneath the tablecloth lifting subtly. The galaxies may shine, but it's the dark matter that gives the universe its shape. Like scaffolding around a cathedral that never quite gets finished. Historians still argue whether dark matter is particulate, some kind of exotic particle we haven't discovered yet, or something entirely different, modifications to gravity, or echoes from dimensions we can't perceive. Whatever it is, it's here. It's holding everything together. As you continue forward, the space between galaxies reveals itself not as a void, but as a landscape. There are filaments, massive strands of matter stretching across the universe, like webbing spun between the stars. You're on one now, a cosmic bridge between the Milky Way and Andromeda. It's not visible to the eye, but its effects are everywhere. Gravity clumps along its spine. Tiny galaxies, faint and soft, drift along it like pollen. You coast through a couple of them, dwarf galaxies with no name, no catalogue entry, no story but the one you're telling now. You pass a small spiral galaxy orbiting Andromeda like a moon around a planet. M32, or perhaps M110. These companion galaxies are pulled and stretched by Andromeda's gravity, reshaped slowly over billions of years. You imagine them like barnacles clinging to a drifting whale. They don't fight the pull, they just follow, and then you see it. Andromeda, not a point, not a blur, a structure, a body, full and luminous and spiraling, arms outstretched in greeting or warning, it's hard to say which. It fills your vision now, as grand and complex as the Milky Way, but different too. Its core is brighter, its arms tighter, its mass slightly greater. You've arrived at our nearest galactic neighbour, the great mirror in the sky. You don't enter just yet. You slow, hovering just outside its halo. You admire its scale. You think of the future. One day, 4 billion years or so, Andromeda and the Milky Way will collide. They'll dance, merge, strip stars from one another, fling systems into intergalactic exile, and then they'll settle, slowly, into a new elliptical shape, a remixed galaxy, one with no spiral arms, but with the bones of two ancient giants braided together forever. But for now, they're still separate, and you are in the space between them, floating, unclaimed. The space here is sacred. You're witnessing a kind of celestial tension, like standing between two slow-moving mountains, knowing they will one day meet, but not today. Today, the stillness holds. You linger in that stillness. You breathe it in, if breathing were a thing you still did. One last glance behind, the Milky Way, dim but still visible, curling like smoke on the horizon. Ahead, Andromeda, waiting. You press forward, finally crossing the threshold. Galaxies are not borders, but they do have gravity, and you're inside hers now. You fall into Andromeda like a feather onto velvet, slow, deliberate, and with an inevitability that's oddly comforting. This galaxy, 2.5 million light-years from home, feels strangely familiar. A spiral, like ours. Similar in shape, slightly more massive, slightly more luminous. But there's something quieter about it. You're not sure if it's the distance from home talking, or if Andromeda truly does carry herself differently, less chaotic, more composed. She's been orbiting herself in silence since before Earth had continents, and now you're her newest witness. You cross her outer halo first, a broad expanse of faint stars and lost matter. These outskirts stretch much farther than they appear in telescopes. Tendrils of gas and stray stars cast into the void from ancient mergers, like hair teased out by wind. You drift through it slowly, the density barely above that of intergalactic space. The stars here don't belong to any particular system anymore. They just hover, orbiting the galaxy like forgotten memories. A soft glow begins to build around you. Not from anyone's source, but from the slow thickening of starlight. You're gliding into the main disk now, the structure beginning to take shape beneath you. The spiral arms of Andromeda are broader than the Milky Way's, with less dust obscuring their stars. You can see straight through them in places, watching the layers of stellar evolution unfold like pages in a book. One of the first things you notice is how blue the arms are. Not metaphorically, but truly. There's an abundance of hot young stars here, burning in luminous clusters like jewels flung into deep water. You pass one such cluster, a tight knot of bright stars no more than a few million years old. They pulse with the arrogance of youth, fierce and short-lived. Already some of them have begun to slough off their outer layers, preparing for their inevitable implosions. But for now, they shine. You steer your drift gently through a stellar nursery nestled within one of the arms, a glowing region of ionized hydrogen sculpted by the radiation of nearby stars. It's not unlike the Orion Nebula you passed back in your own galaxy, but here the colours are different. The redder hues dominate, tinted by a slightly higher metallicity in the dust. You imagine the texture of it, the thin, static electricity of 1,000 new stars cracking into life, all too young to understand their own brilliance. Then, unexpectedly, you find silence. You glide over a large swath of the disk where the stars thin again, a dark lane slicing between the arms. This isn't empty space, it's dust. Dense clouds of carbon and silicates absorbing starlight, hiding what lies beyond. You coast through it, watching it swirl past like smoke. There's a planet here, orbiting a red giant in silence. Its atmosphere glows faintly from infrared reflection, but otherwise it's invisible to most eyes. You hover above its clouds for a moment. There are storms, yes, winds, maybe lightning, but more than anything, there's time. It's a world waiting for something, a spark, a witness. Farther in, the density rises again. The spiral arms fold tighter around the galactic center. You find a binary system caught mid-breakup, two stars pulled apart by the gravity of a third. The larger of the pair is shedding its outer layers, feeding them to its companion through a thin stream of plasma. It's a strange intimacy, both violent and tender, mass exchanged like breath. Historians still argue whether such systems eventually merge, or whether they always end in one star draining the other to death. You drift by silently, choosing not to interrupt. You pass through another cluster, this one older, more subdued. It glows yellow with long dead stars and a few red dwarfs still clinging to the game. No new stars here, just legacy. Still, you notice a peculiar arrangement, several systems in near-perfect hexagonal distribution. It's likely chance. Probably. But it makes you wonder. You start to notice more companions. Andromeda is surrounded by dozens of satellite galaxies, some larger than others. You skim close to Messier 32, a compact elliptical galaxy hugging Andromeda's side like a child refusing to grow up. It's been tidally distorted, stretched by gravitational forces into a tight, almost featureless oval. You pause to look back at it. There's beauty even in simplicity. Not every galaxy needs arms or drama. Some just are. The core draws closer now. The bulge at the heart of Andromeda rises like a golden island in a sea of spiral light. Unlike the Milky Way, Andromeda's central bulge is densely packed with older stars, all orbiting in rapid, complex paths. You can almost feel the radiation pressing outward. Heat, photons, waves of long-forgotten energy. As you descend, the light intensifies, not like the glare of a spotlight, but the weight of accumulated brilliance. Every star here is ancient, heavy with memory, and at the very center, another black hole. This one larger than Sagittarius A star, clocking in at over 100 million solar masses. It's sleeping now, or perhaps just thinking very slowly. There's no accretion disk, no jets, just gravity, raw and pure. You imagine it like a bell, one that only rings when struck by something truly colossal. You hover nearby, far enough to avoid the point of no return, close enough to feel the weight of history bend around you. You pull away gently, following a corridor of stars leading out from the bulge. You pass a star caught in a decaying orbit, spiraling slowly toward the black hole. It still burns, oblivious. You think of moths, of fate, of things that only appear inevitable in hindsight. Outside the core, you begin to loop around the disk. You see spiral arms from a new angle now, thick lanes of starlight folding over themselves. There's symmetry here, yes, but also noise, evidence of past collisions. The arms don't spiral perfectly. One twists slightly off plane, another seems to kink at the edge. These are scars, marks left behind by galactic mergers long past. The gravitational memory of encounters that shaped this galaxy into what it is now. Andromeda, you realise, isn't a twin of the Milky Way. She's an older sister, bigger, stronger, more experienced. And one day, she will come for us. Not in anger, but in inevitability. The two galaxies are already moving toward each other, pulled by mutual gravity across the void. In 4 billion years, they'll collide. Not explosively, but slowly, like continents drifting together. Stars won't crash, but their orbits will shift and everything will change. You drift on, humbled. You came here looking for difference and instead found reflection. Not of yourself exactly, but of home. A familiar spiral, a shared fate. At last you exit the far edge of Andromeda's disk. Its halo wraps around you. thin and ghostly. You look back and see the galaxy whole, stretching across the sky like an answer you're not quite ready to understand. You've been inside 2 galaxies now, seen their hearts, touched their edges, and ahead, more light, more spirals. The whole local group waits. You drift out of Andromeda's halo like a paper boat leaving shore, the galaxy receding behind you in a swirl of light and memory. Its gravitational pull loosens gently, like a parent letting go of a child's hand, not in rejection, but with quiet trust that you'll keep going, and you do. Beyond this spiral giant lies an entire ensemble of galactic bodies, a kind of cosmic family photo spread across millions of light years, loosely bound by the invisible thread of gravity. You're entering the local group now, a community of galaxies moving together through space like a flock of interstellar birds. At first glance, it doesn't seem like much. Just 3 large galaxies, the Milky Way, Andromeda, and the less glamorous but still impressive Triangulum galaxy. The rest are smaller, fainter, and harder to spot. But they're here, all 50 plus of them. Some nestled close to their larger cousins, others wandering the outskirts like introverts at a party. You pass them one by one, tiny by galactic standards but no less intricate. The first to greet you is Messier 33, also known as Triangulum. It's the 3rd largest galaxy in the local group, a shy spiral just under 60,000 light-years wide. You glide into its arms and immediately feel the difference. It's more open, less dense, almost like a half-finished painting. The stars are sparser, the core dimmer, yet it hums with potential. A burst of star formation flickers in one of its arms, a reminder that small doesn't mean stagnant. Historians still argue whether Triangulum is gravitationally bound to Andromeda or just passing by in a long elliptical flirtation. Either way, it's part of the family for now. As you drift through Triangulum's open arms, you pass a nebula so large it could swallow entire solar systems, NGC 604. It's a beast of a star factory, glowing pink and violet in the ultraviolet haze. Inside, massive stars are cooking at temperatures you can barely conceptualize, living fast and dying young. The shockwaves from past supernovae ripple through the cloud, igniting new births in a chain reaction that will last for millions of years. You float through the edge of it slowly, letting the energy pass through you like a breeze through reeds. Beyond Triangulum, the scenery begins to change. The galaxies grow smaller, dimmer, less symmetrical. You pass through a string of dwarf spheroidal galaxies, tiny, fuzzy patches of stars that lack structure. They don't spiral or shimmer, they just hang there, caught in the orbits of larger galaxies like crumbs in a gravity well. You find one, the Pegasus dwarf, trailing faint tails of stars where it's being slowly torn apart. Another, the Tucana dwarf, sits alone, so far from any large galaxy that it feels like an afterthought. These dwarfs are easy to miss. Some are so faint that we only discovered them recently, hiding in plain sight among the brighter stars of the night sky. But they're essential. They help astronomers understand dark matter, galactic formation, and the early structure of the universe. Their stars are old, ancient relics glowing with the last embers of hydrogen fusion. You drift through one and realize this might be what the earliest galaxies looked like, just loose gatherings of stars huddled against the cold. You pass closer to the Milky Way again, not re-entering it, but skimming its outskirts from the outside. Its satellite galaxies surround it like distant moons. There's the Sagittarius dwarf, currently being consumed by the Milky Way's gravity, its stars smeared into a long, ghostly stream. You follow the arc of it, watching its path curve like a ribbon caught in wind. Historians still argue how many times it has orbited us. Some say this is its first close encounter, others claim it's already made multiple passes, each one stripping away more of its mass. Then comes the Large Magellanic Cloud, the LMC, bright, beautiful, a galaxy in miniature. It's irregular in shape, full of star-forming regions that flicker like city lights from a great height. You skim past the Tarantula Nebula, a monstrous region of glowing hydrogen and electric tendrils. It's the most active star-forming region in the local group, and you can feel the density increase just from its presence. Massive stars cluster here like firecrackers waiting to burst. You could get lost here for years, watching one stellar life after another bloom and burn. Trailing close behind is the Small Magellanic Cloud, another irregular galaxy, slightly less luminous, but equally fascinating. It looks like a distorted cousin of the LMC, caught in an eternal gravitational embrace. Tidal forces pull on both, and together they dance a slow, spiraling waltz around the Milky Way, shedding gas and stars into a shared stream that wraps around the galactic plane like a scarf. You follow that stream for a while, drifting through its scattered contents. Tiny stellar groups, compressed clouds, bits of dust that once belonged to another galaxy entirely. You move farther outward now to the true outskirts of the local group. The galaxies become fewer, more widely spaced. You spot Leo the Fun, a small elliptical dwarf hovering about 820,000 light-years from the Milky Way. It orbits quietly, too distant to interact much. It's a loner, the kind of galaxy that might go an entire cosmic age without brushing up against anything larger than itself. Still, its stars burn on. They don't care that no one's watching. And beyond that, Leo T, an even smaller dwarf, barely visible, but curious in its own right. Unlike many dwarfs that are starved of gas, Leo T still has some hydrogen. It might still be forming stars even now. It's the kind of galaxy astronomers whisper about, one that shouldn't exist the way it does. Still burning, still breathing, even as it floats near the edge of a gravitational family that barely knows its name. You begin to feel the local group thinning. The space between members becomes significant again. You pass the Antlia dwarf, the Phoenix dwarf, Cetus and Aquarius. Each one faint, each one modest, each one a kind of punctuation mark in the sentence of local structure. From this vantage point you see it all. The Milky Way, Andromeda, Triangulum, and their silent companions forming a loose, elongated shape in space. Not a sphere, not a cluster, more like a web. A gravitational murmuration slowly coalescing over time. In the very distant future, perhaps hundreds of billions of years from now, these galaxies may merge into one, forming a single elliptical entity drifting alone through an expanding universe. But that's not today. Today they still spin, still pull, still glow. You, floating just beyond the last confirmed satellite, pause. Behind you, the local group, a gentle congregation of a light. Ahead of you, something far busier. The Virgo supercluster calls, and you answer. You turn toward the Virgo supercluster, the way a bird might turn toward the open sky. Not out of obligation, but instinct. The local group, with all its quiet intimacy and scattered members, now lies behind you, a faint cluster of lights bundled together by gravity and history. But ahead lies something vastly different, denser, more intricate. A metropolis of galaxies stretching across 100 million light-years. You're about to fly into one of the most crowded, chaotic regions of the known universe. A place where galaxies gather not in twos or threes, but by the thousands. The first thing you notice as you approach is how the void seems to close in. The blackness gives way to density, light gathering ahead like fog under a street lamp. It doesn't come from a single source, but from everywhere. Galaxies start appearing in all directions, not just as distant smudges, but as fully resolved structures. Spirals, ellipticals, irregulars, each one glowing faintly, each one a swirl of stars, gas, dark matter and motion. You're entering the outskirts of the Virgo supercluster now, and the change is immediate. It's like flying over the dark plains and suddenly hitting city limits, streetlights, movement, density. But here, the streets are filaments. Long rivers of dark matter and galaxies flowing toward nodes of gravity. You drift into one such filament, and it carries you like a river current. To either side, you see small galaxy groups orbiting each other like celestial street corners. Some are bound, others, just passing acquaintances, caught momentarily by each other's pull. You pass a galaxy merger in progress, two mid-sized spirals caught in a slow-motion collision. Tidal arms stretch out from both like dancers mid-spin, flinging stars into vast arcs. In the centre, their cores glow hotter as gas compresses and triggers bursts of star formation. You pause to observe the drama unfold. This isn't violence, not really. It's choreography on a billion-year scale. The galaxies are being reshaped, not destroyed. Historians still argue whether such mergers are the main driver of starburst activity, or just one piece of a larger puzzle. Watching from this close, you're tempted to say, both are true. The filament begins to thicken as it flows into a larger structure, the Virgo cluster proper. This is one of the central hubs of the supercluster, a gravitational nexus packed with over 1,300 galaxies, and possibly many more that are too faint to see. As you approach, you slow, not because you're afraid, but because the sheer magnitude of it demands stillness. It's like flying into a canyon of light, where the walls are galaxies stacked on galaxies, everyone alive with stars. You descend into the cluster and are immediately overwhelmed by variety. Elliptical galaxies dominate here, vast, featureless ovals of old stars. They outnumber the spirals by far, but lack the dramatic arms and gas-rich lanes you've grown used to. These are the retired giants, bloated and soft-edged, no longer birthing stars, just coasting on the momentum of their past. You pass close to Messier 87, the largest elliptical in the cluster. It looms like a silent monarch, its central black hole a behemoth 17 billion times the mass of the Sun. Yes, that Messier 87, the galaxy whose black hole was the first ever photographed. You drift near its edge, not close enough to vanish into its gravitational throat, but close enough to watch the halo glow. You can feel the pull of it, even through your dream body. The jet extending from its core stretches for thousands of light years, a tight stream of relativistic particles blazing through the cluster like a cosmic lighthouse beam. The black hole at the center doesn't just sit there, it shouts. You move on, deeper into the Virgo cluster. The galaxies crowd closer together here. Collisions are not just possible, but expected. You see lenticular galaxies, those odd hybrids between spiral and elliptical, flattened like disks but without the bright arms. They seem tired, like galaxies that were once spirals but lost their gas and gave up. You pass a few that show signs of recent stripping, galaxies torn by tidal forces, leaking stars into the intergalactic medium like sand through a sieve. Amid all this cosmic bustle, you notice something quieter, an ultra-diffuse galaxy, almost invisible unless you're looking straight at it. These are ghosts, galaxies with the mass of giants but barely any stars. Their starlight is spread thin, like a whisper in the dark. Some scientists think they're failed galaxies, robbed of their gas early on. Others argue they're survivors of a rough environment, reshaped into shadows. Either way, you glide through one and feel the absence more than the presence. It's like walking through a city made of fog. You see other structures, faint arcs of gravitational lensing, where massive galaxy clusters bend the light of galaxies behind them, creating smeared rings and distorted smudges. It's like the universe has slipped on a pair of curved glasses. You catch one perfect Einstein ring glowing in a soft oval around an invisible mass. It's oddly elegant, a mathematical accident sculpted into beauty. You drift through the intracluster medium, the diffuse plasma that fills the space between the Virgo cluster's galaxies. It's hot, millions of degrees, but so thin that you wouldn't feel it. Yet it glows in X-rays, tracing the shape of the cluster like a ghost map. Supernovae and galactic winds have pumped this plasma into the cluster over billions of years, enriching it with metals. It's a reminder that even the space between galaxies has history. The universe doesn't waste anything. You pass another pair of galaxies, one spiral, one elliptical, interacting along the edge of the cluster. The spiral is being stripped of its gas as it plunges through the cluster's core. You watch long tails of hydrogen trail behind it, like scarves caught in the wind. Within the spiral's arms, star formation is flaring from the stress of the encounter. You can almost hear it, a silent roar of creation and undoing. Historians still argue whether clusters like Virgo formed from primordial density fluctuations or from smaller groupings merging over time. The answer is likely both. You've seen the filaments, you've followed the threads. Virgo is a knot in that thread, a place where the universe got tangled and then turned that tangle into something spectacular. Finally, you rise above the Virgo cluster, giving yourself distance. From here, it stretches like a massive flower, galaxies petaling outward in all directions. The Milky Way and Andromeda are somewhere out on the edge of one of these petals, still slowly drifting toward this gravitational center. One day, far in the future, our local group will be swallowed by Virgo. The whole group will spiral inward and become just another line in this glowing web. You look outward, because if Virgo is this large, this populated, then what lies beyond must be even more immense. You're not done yet, not by a long shot. Ahead, the great cosmic web awaits, and you're going to ride it. You climb out of the Virgo cluster like a diver breaching the surface, galaxies still clinging to you in the rear view like beads of water. The light here spreads again, slowly relaxing its grip. The density fades, not into emptiness, but into vast stretched threads of form, and now, at last, you begin to see the pattern. Not just in patches, not just in guesses or models, but truly see it. The universe begins to show you its architecture. You're no longer just moving from galaxy to galaxy. You're gliding along a road, a structure, a filament, the cosmic web. This is the scaffolding of everything, the skeleton on which the universe has built itself. It's not made of metal or beams, but of gravity and dark matter, galaxies and plasma, spread thin and strung tight. Imagine spider silk, but across 100 million light years. That's the scale you're entering now, and you're impossibly, exquisitely small. You ride a filament now, and it's not just one road, it's thousands of galaxies drawn along a single gravitational thread, all moving slowly inward toward denser nodes. Between these threads lie the voids, expanses of almost nothing, where matter has been evacuated like air from a vacuum-sealed bag. And you're not avoiding them. You'll cross those too, but for now, you ride the glowing vein of the cosmos, and it carries you forward. You pass through the coma filament first, a corridor of galaxy groups linking clusters across hundreds of millions of light years. Each group is like a city, glowing faintly in the dark. Some galaxies huddle in pairs, others in larger gatherings. You drift past one such group, about 6 galaxies orbiting each other like a family of introverts. One spiral, nearly edge-on, shows signs of tidal stretching, likely from a recent encounter. Its arms aren't symmetrical anymore, they flare like wings. A few stars flung too far now float between galaxies, never to return. One of the most peculiar features you encounter is a long stream of gas stretching between 2 galaxies that are no longer near each other. A memory of an ancient merger. It stretches across hundreds of thousands of light years like a translucent scar. You pass through it and feel the echo of tension, the fossil record of gravity. Historians still argue whether these faint bridges between galaxies are remnants of star formation or simply leftover scaffolding that never got cleaned up. Either way, they are everywhere if you know how to look. You move through another cluster along the filament, smaller than Virgo but no less alive. The Fornax cluster, roughly 60 million light years from Earth. Here, the galaxies are fewer but still tightly bound. There's a quietness here, a kind of dim dignity. The spirals spin, but more slowly. The ellipticals seem half asleep. You drift past NGC 1399, the cluster's central elliptical, bloated with stars and time. It's orbited by dwarf galaxies like moths circling a porchlight, and yet even here collisions happen. You spot a spiral beginning to unravel, its central bar distorting, its outer arms fraying like an old rope. There's nothing quick about this process. It will take 1 billion years to finish unwinding, but you see it beginning, a slow undoing, not destruction, exactly, just rearrangement. Everything in the universe, even galaxies, get redesigned eventually. You pause for a moment at a curious phenomenon, an orphan stream of stars without an obvious parent galaxy. It curls through space like spilled ink, but its origin is unknown. It might be from a galaxy too faint to see, or from one long since consumed. You hover inside it for a moment, watching stars drift past like snowflakes in slow motion. This is what remains when memory has no anchor, a wandering remnant of something that once made sense. Then something faint pulses through your perception. You adjust course slightly, following the sensation, not sound, not gravity, but pattern, and it leads you to a wall, not a solid structure, but a massive alignment of galaxies so dense and vast it looks like a ridge of light across the sky. You've arrived at the Sloan Great Wall, one of the largest structures in the observable universe, a megafilament, nearly 1.4 billion light-years long. From here, it's not a wall so much as a galaxy reef, stretching across the black like a wave frozen mid-break. You follow the curve of it, tracing clusters and voids, rising and falling with the structure like a glider in thermal currents. You see galaxy superclusters strung along its length, Coma, Hercules, Perseus Pisces, all glowing, all connected. It's not clear whether the wall is a single coherent structure or just a lucky alignment, but from where you float it looks purposeful. Like the universe took a brush and made one final stroke before setting the canvas down. You leave the wall and dive into one of the voids between filaments. At first, it feels like falling. There are no stars, no galaxies, just the sparse dusting of hydrogen atoms, dark matter, and the thinnest soup of ancient light. You move for what feels like days, weeks. You begin to question whether you're still in motion at all, but you are, and eventually you emerge, out of silence, into light again. Another filament, another crowded highway of galaxies. The structure repeats, but it never bores. Each node, each cluster, each galaxy group has its own personality. You begin to recognize patterns, compact groups, long chains, curved alignments. You pass a galaxy so distorted by gravitational lensing that it looks like a ribbon tied in space. The light from a more distant galaxy has been warped around it, creating arcs and rings that bend physics into something almost playful. Farther along you encounter another rarity, an intergalactic quasar still burning bright despite the eons. Its light takes billions of years to reach you, and even now it cuts through the dark like a needle of fire. At its heart, a black hole feasting with ferocity, generating energy from the collapse of matter into oblivion. You feel the ancient hunger in it, the kind of appetite that shapes galaxies around it like clay. Historians still argue whether these ancient quasars mark the earliest large-scale structures, or the end of something older. What you know, floating this close, is that they are neither dead nor dying. They are becoming, always. You rise again above the filament and look around. Now you see it all. The filaments, the nodes, the voids. A tapestry woven from stars and gravity, billions of light years across. You're not in space anymore. You're inside structure. You're inside the mind of the cosmos. And it's not done building yet. You move gently through this next expanse, and something about the rhythm of the journey begins to soften. The velocity hasn't changed, not really, but the silence has thickened. The structures you've been riding, those glowing filaments and dancing galaxy clusters, now seem farther apart, their density thinning as you pass into a quieter corridor of the cosmic web. You've crossed the Sloan Great Wall, traced superclusters with your thoughts, followed rivers of galaxies into the dark. Now you begin to feel the weight of distance differently. It's not just space now, it's pause. You're no longer rushing toward the next wonder, you're floating through one. You pass close to a faint dwarf galaxy, one of the loneliest you've ever seen. It doesn't belong to a group, it's not clinging to a supercluster, it just exists, hanging in the space between, a fragile snowflake that somehow resisted being pulled into a larger storm. Its stars are sparse and red, old and quiet. You drift slowly through its center and realize it has no core, no gravitational hub, just a suggestion of one, like a memory trying to hold itself together. Nearby there's a stream of intergalactic stars, orphans flung out from their home galaxies, now wandering in the slow current between clusters. They're not rare, but you don't usually get this close. Here, they trail behind like glowing crumbs, tracing out ancient paths left by collisions or disruptions long forgotten. Some are so isolated they may never feel another gravitational tug. They'll burn alone for billions of years, then fade without ever having been noticed. Until now. Far ahead, a faint patch of structure begins to materialize, your next destination. But even from this distance, it doesn't behave the way the others did. It doesn't pull the same way. It feels off-center. As you approach, you understand why. You're nearing the end of a filament, not a dead end, just a place where the threads of galaxies fray into deep space. And here, on the outermost reaches of this branch of the cosmic web, you find the strangest galaxies yet. Ones that barely glow. Ones made mostly of dark matter and not much else. Ultra-diffuse galaxies, some with the mass of the Milky Way but only a handful of stars scattered across them like lights in a dying shopping mall. You glide through one and feel the eerie lightness of it. These structures exist more through implication than presence. Like someone tried to build a galaxy but got tired halfway through. Historians still argue whether these ultra-diffuse galaxies are failed giants or overachieving dwarfs. You're not here to decide, you're just here to witness. You pass by a structure that defies symmetry, two galaxies locked in a mutual orbit, but tilted at such extreme angles they appear to be dancing rather than spinning. Their tidal tails stretch out into the void like strands of DNA pulled taut. They're not merging, not separating, just circling endlessly. You start to feel the motion of your journey slow, not in speed, but in tempo. The light fades more gradually, the galaxies are fewer, the gaps between them longer. You're leaving the tangle of traffic behind now. Ahead lies one of the great absences, a cosmic void, and when you reach it, it is exactly what it promises to be. A vast, echoing hollowness where galaxies have failed to form or were pulled away long ago by the stronger gravity of the surrounding filaments. This is no pothole in space. It is a canyon. Some voids stretch for hundreds of millions of light years with barely a whisper of starlight inside them. You're entering one now, the Bhuta's Void perhaps, or another unnamed, uncharted gulf. It doesn't matter. They all share the same flavour. Silence. You glide for what feels like an eternity, surrounded by almost nothing, and yet not nothing. Here, in the very heart of absence, you find a single galaxy. Just one. Alone, glowing faintly, like a campfire left burning at the bottom of a canyon. You approach it slowly. A spiral, barely holding its shape. No companions, no cluster. Just this one island of stars spinning in defiance of the dark. You drift around it once. There's a kind of nobility to its solitude. It wasn't abandoned. It just formed here, far from everything, and still, it persists. You leave it gently behind, letting it vanish into the distance like a thought you're not ready to examine. On the far side of the void, structure begins to return, slowly, hesitantly. You pass through a scattering of galaxies forming what looks like a chain, but not a full filament. More like the start of one. Some are ellipticals, round and ancient, glowing softly like fruit gone slightly overripe. Others are spirals, disrupted and frayed. You follow the chain for a while until you notice something strange. The whole arrangement seems to curve, not gravitationally but visually. The chain arcs across the sky like it's bowing towards something you can't yet see, and then quietly it appears. Not a structure, not a shape, but a shadow. A gravity well so vast that it bends not just the path of galaxies, but the path of thought. You're still far from it, but you can feel its reach like a deep tide pulling through the bones of space. The others are moving toward it, not quickly, not deliberately, but steadily. Everything is. You've begun to drift into the gravitational domain of what astronomers call the Great Attractor, a region of immense, barely understood mass, located in a part of the sky obscured by our own galaxy's dust. It doesn't shine, it doesn't scream, it just pulls. Everything nearby, the Virgo supercluster, the Hydra Centaurus supercluster, even our local group, is slowly, inevitably falling toward it. You don't speed up, you let the pull guide you now. Even the universe has places it moves toward. For a while, you simply drift with it, letting the soft gravity cradle you. The journey here has worn you smooth. No more sharp turns, no more clusters erupting with drama, just motion without hurry. You pass one final dwarf galaxy. It doesn't have a name and maybe never will, but its light reaches you, across the dark, across time. And you do something strange. You turn your head, so to speak. You look back. You see the galaxies you've passed through, the groups, the clusters, the walls, the threads, a trail of light spanning hundreds of millions of light years. It's a path now, one you've made by noticing, by drifting, by not rushing. And in this soft moment at the quiet hinge of everything you've seen, the pace of the universe lets you exhale. It all begins to feel like music now, low, slow, spacious music, the kind that doesn't need melody, just presence. You feel your momentum slow, not from friction or gravity, but from peace. And so, for a while, you rest. The quiet hum of motion returns, not as urgency, but as invitation. You drift gently now, letting the subtle gravity of the cosmos guide you forward, deeper into the gravitational mystery you've only begun to feel. The Great Attractor still lies ahead, out of sight, out of definition. It doesn't emit light, it doesn't reveal itself, but the universe is leaning toward it. You are part of that lean. You move across a region where the galaxies seem to follow an invisible slope, as if they're tumbling slowly downhill. Clusters stretch like footprints through a snowfield. Hydra, Centaurus, Norma. Each one a gathering of hundreds, thousands of galaxies, all slowly pulled by that same unseen influence. And now you enter the Centaurus cluster itself. It's dense, hot, writhing. Galaxies packed close like subway passengers, awkward, dazzling, magnificent. You thread through the center of it, brushing past NGC 4696, a bright elliptical swollen with age and power. This galaxy lies at the heart of Centaurus, glowing not because it wants to, but because it must. It's the result of dozens of mergers, a graveyard of spirals and dwarfs folded into one enormous, slow-burning monument. Around it, filaments of hot gas stretch like arms in a restless dream. You pass a small spiral galaxy being devoured by the cluster's central gravity. It tries to keep its shape, but its arms are being stripped away like petals from a daisy. Historians still argue whether the Great Attractor is a single object or just a label for many overlapping structures, clusters, filaments, dark matter knots, all tangled in a way we don't fully understand. What you do understand is that everything nearby is moving toward it, at hundreds of kilometers per second. It isn't a race, it's a fall. As you drift farther inward, your surroundings grow thicker again. The Norma cluster appears, quieter but just as heavy. It's obscured from Earth's view by the Milky Way's dusty plain, hiding behind stars and clouds, which is why for decades we didn't realize how massive it truly is. But you're here now, and you see it clearly, an anchor in the sky's underbelly, its galaxies spiraling and dancing in tight orbits. You circle one of them, an elliptical the size of a small city-state. Around it, globular clusters hover like bees. You feel the hum of their ancient orbits, a rhythm that's been drumming for billions of years. Not far from Norma, the landscape starts to bend in a new way. You see galaxies being tugged sideways from their expected paths, pulled not just toward the attractor but around it, as if caught in some vast swirling undertow. The curvature is subtle but persistent. It makes your whole trajectory feel like it's not a line, but a spiral, a descent into something deep and invisible. It's around this point that you begin to pick up whispers of something even larger, something beyond the Great Attractor, because just when you think you've reached the bottom of the gravitational well, you realize it was only a slope into something deeper, the Shapley supercluster, one of the largest mass concentrations in the observable universe. It lies far beyond the Great Attractor, and it's pulling on everything, including the Great Attractor itself. Yes, even the thing everything is falling toward is itself falling. You coast toward this new center, but the space between becomes increasingly chaotic. Galaxies are not just orbiting now, some are colliding head-on. You pass through the wake of one such merger, two galaxy clusters slamming together, their dark matter halos overlapping, their gas clouds colliding and heating to hundreds of millions of degrees. Shockwaves ripple outward, visible only in X-ray light, but felt here like pressure waves in your dreamlike frame. One galaxy in the wreckage still spins, barely. Its arms distorted, its core fractured, its gas flung into arcs. Stars have been thrown from their orbits, some flung into intergalactic exile. And yet, even in this ruin, a nebula glows, a baby star cluster igniting in the wake of destruction. Creation and chaos, hand in hand. You pass through another group, a compact gathering where 5 galaxies are engaged in a gravitational tug-of-war. They're too close, too tangled, like dancers sharing the same floor space. The HCG 87 group, perhaps, or another just like it. You watch their mutual attraction twist their shapes, their tails stretching, cores wobbling. One galaxy has already begun to lose its stars into the shared space, forming a kind of luminous bridge to its neighbour. Eventually they'll merge, not today, not this century, but soon enough. Then you see it, the edge of Shapley, not a wall, not a structure, but a field. A gravity field so vast that even light bends gently inward. You're drifting over one of the largest known superclusters, a behemoth of galaxies clustered not just in 3s or 10s, but in tens of thousands. You fly over Able 3558, the central cluster within Shapley. It pulses with energy. The galaxies here are different, older, redder, wiser somehow, and all of them are sinking slowly toward the supercluster's core like leaves in a whirlpool too large to ever see from above. From this height, the filaments look like rivers flowing toward a drain you can't quite see. Some curve back toward the Great Attractor, others stretch into the unknown. But here, now, you feel it. This is the current, the tide of the observable universe, the flow of galaxies into structure, into mass, into gravity. You slow your motion and rise above it all, pulling your view outward. You see the Virgo supercluster again, far behind, You see the local group, barely a smudge. You see clusters strung like pearls on an invisible thread. And now you notice a quiet truth. Every galaxy you've passed, every filament you've followed, every wall and void and ripple, they're all part of something still larger, a Laniakea, Hawaiian for immeasurable heaven. That's the name astronomers have given to this whole structure, an immense region of space, hundreds of thousands of galaxies bound together by gravity, flowing toward the same point. A meta-supercluster, and you're in it. Have been all along. All the paths you've followed have bent toward this river of light. You're floating inside a current that curves across hundreds of millions of light years, all drawn inward by mass you still can't fully see. And in this moment, you understand the shape of your journey. You haven't been flying aimlessly, you've been flowing, following the gravity of everything, riding the tide of the universe itself. And now that tide is slowing. Not because there's nothing ahead, but because everything behind has begun to settle inside you. You are vast now, a witness of structure, a traveller of filaments and shadows, and as your motion softens, your thoughts lengthen. The space between impressions grows, the light around you fades, but in a golden way, like dusk, not darkness, like a curtain falling after the final note, like sleep, like home. You linger now on the soft outskirts of Laniakea, the immeasurable heaven, letting your imaginary body drift through its sprawling reaches like a feather floating over an endless field. You've followed gravity to its deepest thrum, traced the curves of galaxies wrapped in invisible threads, and arrived at the place where light and time begin to whisper instead of shout. Around you, galaxies continue their slow migrations, inching through the cosmos like patient pilgrims, each one a city of stars, each one moving to a rhythm older than stars themselves. Ahead, a new structure begins to reveal itself, not as a wall or a filament, but as a cluster so vast and dense it warps the very idea of a neighbourhood. You're gliding toward the Pisces-Cetus supercluster complex, a massive aggregation of galaxy clusters that stretches across the observable universe like a bridge of fireflies in slow motion. It's not a place with borders, just a concentration of light and motion, stitched together by gravitational purpose. Here, superclusters bump shoulders, filaments braid, and voids coil around them like dark oceans around volcanic islands. You descend into one of its denser regions, brushing past the Perseus-Pisces supercluster, a long, filamentous river of galaxies over 1 billion light-years long. From your vantage point, it's a twisting helix of cosmic matter curving through space like a luminous spinal cord. You drift along it, stars and galaxies slipping past your periphery like cars on a highway you'll never exit. Everything here is moving toward something, toward higher density, deeper gravity. The universe doesn't like stillness, not really. Even its quiet places are always shifting. You spot the Perseus cluster ahead, a dominant mass within the filament. From afar, it looks like a jewel set into a glowing thread, a cosmic brooch pinned to space-time. You move toward it slowly, respectfully. This is not just a cluster of galaxies, it's a pressure cooker of gas and dark matter, with hundreds of galaxies caught in its clutches. At its centre sits NGC 1275, a monstrous elliptical galaxy wrapped in a halo of X-ray radiation and radio lobes. It is simultaneously growing and eroding, feeding its central black hole while also flinging matter into the cluster like an angry sun. You spiral around the cluster's edge and watch the intergalactic medium glow, millions of degrees hot, rich in iron and heavier elements, the product of thousands of supernovae. This gas isn't forming stars, it's floating, suspended in high-energy silence. In Earth's terms, it's essentially empty, but here, it glows with the combined breath of 1,000 stellar deaths. You begin to understand, space isn't empty, it's just patient, and everything within it is built on everything that came before. One spiral galaxy near the edge of the cluster catches your eye. It's tilted just enough to let you see the swirl of its arms, but what fascinates you is its trail, a long streamer of hydrogen gas pulled out like taffy by tidal forces. It curves behind it like a comet's tail, reaching hundreds of thousands of light-years into space. You follow it for a while, letting it guide your glide, and as you do, you pass rogue stars within the tail, cast-offs, dislocated suns without homes. Some of them even have planets still clinging to their gravitational skirts. Imagine that. a whole planetary system flung into intergalactic darkness, drifting forever with no sun in sight. Historians still argue whether such orphaned planets could ever host life. Could geothermal energy, or a thick enough atmosphere, or even artificial sunlight support something? Maybe, maybe not. But as you pass one, you can't help but imagine a single warm ocean buried under ice, with something stirring beneath the surface, unaware that it lives in exile. You leave the tail behind and dive deeper into the webbing between clusters. Galaxies here start to behave differently, less ordered, more erratic. You find irregulars shaped like bent question marks, some stretched into luminous crescents, others warped into S-shapes by gravitational harassment. These galaxies are survivors, scarred, reshaped, but still burning. You drift close to one such galaxy. Its core flickers unevenly, its arms are asymmetrical, but it shines, maybe brighter than anything else around it. Then comes another change. The light begins to tilt. You realize the filament you're on is crossing another, an interlocking structure of galaxies flowing at a slant, intersecting like rivers in a delta. This is where superclusters overlap, a cosmic crossroads. You feel the mass around you growing, not from a single object, but from the collective gravity of thousands of galaxies brushing past each other, orbiting common centers, exchanging stars the way cities trade stories. One of these crossroads forms what astronomers call a node, a place where multiple filaments meet. You hover above it now, and for the first time, the darkness itself feels heavy. You're floating in a gravitational knot, a place where the universe folded itself inward and said, "Here. Begin again." You feel the tension in the galaxies nearby, some tidally stretched, others forming new spirals from the remains of past collisions. Here, motion is constant, form is optional. You drift onward and encounter a cold spot, a region with surprisingly few galaxies, a sort of microvoid within the crowded intersection. It's not large, just a faint pause in an otherwise fevered rhythm. But in this absence, something pulses. A quasar, hidden deep in the black, is still active. Its light has travelled billions of years to reach your senses. You move toward it and watch its jet stream carve through space like a blade of frozen fire. The host galaxy is barely visible, but its heart still roars. Some engines never stop, and now, a pause. Not in space, but in you. The rhythm of travel slows. You've crossed tens of millions of light years in a breath, and the cosmos has only grown more intricate. You begin to feel something else in the background now, the curvature of the observable universe itself. You've reached a region of the cosmic web where gravity can no longer pull structure together, where dark energy begins to win. Here, galaxies still cluster, but not forever. The expansion of the universe is accelerating. Galaxies that aren't bound to each other will eventually drift apart faster than light can keep up. You're flying through the golden age of structure, after formation, but before dispersal. This moment won't last. One day, superclusters like these will be isolated islands in an empty sea. You rise again, looking back. The Perseus Pisces supercluster curves behind you like a celestial river, glowing in constellations of thought. The Virgo supercluster is a glittering delta. The cosmic web is now a lattice of memory. You breathe slower now, if breath were a thing you still had. The noise of galaxy clusters has softened. The filaments are wider here, the voids deeper. You feel the pull forward begin to loosen, like a river flattening out into a lake. Ahead, the most distant lights wait. And you're ready to see how the story began. You glide forward, your trajectory curving gently with the shape of the universe, following one last thread of clustered galaxies as it stretches into the dark. The filaments begin to stretch thinner, their strands drawn so delicately that entire superclusters now sit like beads on a string, separated by vast swathes of silence. The cosmic web loses some of its density here, not because the universe is empty, but because you are venturing toward the edges of formation, toward the place where structure dissolves into expansion. You're riding a cosmic filament, one of the vastest structures imaginable, not in width, but in reach. It's a bridge between galaxy clusters, a thread spun by the gravitational pull of dark matter, drawing matter inward like a river carves a canyon. This one connects two superclusters, maybe Shapley and Horologium Reticulum, maybe something unnamed. The filament stretches for hundreds of millions of light years, a glowing pipeline of galaxies, dust, and dreams. You move along it like a tightrope walker in slow motion, flanked by galaxies that seem to lean with the same gravitational intent. The galaxies here are still, somehow in motion, not just orbiting, not just colliding, but drifting toward one another, slowly building larger clusters through gravitational assembly. It's like watching cities emerge along a trade route, their lights blinking into existence where paths converge. You pass a group of galaxies so tightly clustered, they've begun to merge into a single, enormous elliptical, more a continent than a city. It's called a fossil group, a collection where all the smaller galaxies have already been consumed. What remains is a single dominant body, orbited by the faint echoes of those it digested. You drift around this galactic predator, watching stars fall into its gravity, planets flung into elliptical orbits, and the final few survivors caught in a long spiral descent toward assimilation. Its outer halo glows faintly with the remnants of its past, a soft shell of stripped starlight, and you realize that the filament isn't just a road, it's a process. Everything on it is part of a slow, irresistible choreography of growth and erasure. But the filament doesn't just carry galaxies, it carries heat. Ionized gas flows through its veins, traced only by the soft X-rays it emits when compressed. You pass through a particularly dense section and feel it warm around you. Not hot, not burning, but alive. This gas is the raw fuel of stars drifting through space in volumes so sparse that a single breath would pass through millions of atoms without touching one. And yet, this gas connects the galaxies. They drink from it. They breathe it. It is the river between worlds. Farther down the filament, you encounter another anomaly, a dark galaxy. It's mostly invisible in visible light, but gravitational lensing reveals it, distorting the background stars like a fingerprint pressed against glass. It has no bright stars, no radiant core, just gas and dark matter. It's a ghost, possibly one that never managed to ignite its birthright. Historians still argue whether these galaxies failed to form stars because they lacked critical density, or whether something else snuffed them out before they began. But here it is, proof of a life unstarted, orbiting the thread like a missed note in a symphony. You continue drifting, the galaxies beginning to spread farther apart. The path is still lit, but the spacing grows irregular. You pass a galaxy chain, a straight alignment of small spirals arranged almost like beads, an unlikely geometry and yet real. Some of them show signs of interaction, distorted arms, bridges of stars, shared streams of hydrogen. It's as if they're holding hands across the filament, refusing to drift too far apart. You wonder what kind of gravitational ballet shaped such a perfect row, and then the filament begins to fray. The galaxies grow sparse, their clusters smaller and more scattered. The gravitational bridge becomes less a path and more a suggestion. You're nearing the end of the structure, not of matter, but of coherence. The universe, out here, begins to stretch wide. The expansion becomes noticeable. Galaxies that are not bound to each other are accelerating away, carried by the fabric of space itself. This is where the tug-of-war between gravity and dark energy tilts irrevocably in favor of expansion. For the past billions of years, gravity has been the architect, drawing galaxies together, assembling clusters, weaving filaments. But now, out here, dark energy wins. It pushes space apart faster than gravity can pull it together. Galaxies begin to drift away from one another, not because they want to, but because the very fabric beneath them is expanding. You float through this widening. The galaxies are no longer crowded, they are whispers on the edge of hearing. Each one becomes harder to see. Redshift begins to take hold, not just metaphorically, but literally. The light from these galaxies stretches as they flee from you. Their spectra elongate into infrared, then microwave. The universe is pulling them out of visible thought. You pass a particularly distant spiral galaxy, one so far that its starlight has been travelling for nearly 10 billion years. You see it as it was before Earth had oceans. Its arms are tightly wound, its star formation rate high. It's vibrant, alive, unaware that it will age into a lenticular blur, then fade quietly into background radiation. But right now, in this moment, it's a lighthouse, and you bow your orbit around it, a slow, respectful arc. You move deeper still. the galaxies begin to blink out, not from existence, but from visibility. They cross the cosmic event horizon, a point beyond which their light will never reach Earth, no matter how long we wait. The universe expands faster than light can return. These galaxies are still there, they're still real. But from our point of view, they are falling away into a kind of observable afterlife. You pass through one final chain of galaxies. They're redshifted so far that they now glow faintly in the microwave background. Just before they vanish entirely, one of them sends out a flare, a gamma ray burst, short and sudden, the death cry of a collapsing star. It pierces the void like a needle through velvet, and then it too fades. And now the filament ends. You've followed the last thread of structure from supercluster to supercluster, through the spine of the cosmic web, and now there's no next node. There's only drift. You're not in a filament anymore. You are between all things. You are in the space where the future fades. And somehow it's beautiful. Because this isn't where it stops. It's just where the pace slows, the light softens, the edges blur. You're drifting now toward the boundary of what we can see. Beyond it lies the ancient sky, the place where the first galaxies flickered, the place where light became history. And it's there that you'll go next. You're moving now toward the edge, not of space, but of memory. The galaxies have thinned to a quiet murmur behind you, their light fading into the long red twilight of distance and time. What surrounds you now is not a landscape of stars, but of history. Light that began its journey before the Earth had formed, before atoms had even tried to organize themselves into anything resembling curiosity. You're entering the deep past, drifting into the glow of the early universe, guided by the faint and steady pull of something immense and nameless. The galaxies you left behind are still moving, still building, still burning. But here, everything is older. Here, time itself starts to fold. That pull you felt before, it's growing stronger now. It isn't light, or sound, or even gravity in the traditional sense. It's the great attractor's long shadow, still tugging at the architecture of everything nearby. But you've passed through its domain already. What lies ahead is something even more elusive, more abstract. Astronomers call it the dipole repeller, a mysterious region opposite the great attractor, a place not of mass but of emptiness, which appears to push galaxies away through the same gravitational mechanics that pull them elsewhere. Yes, a place of less. A gravitational void so significant it shapes how galaxies flow. Historians still argue whether the dipole repeller is truly repelling, or whether we're simply falling away from it, drawn instead toward more massive regions. But from your perspective, you feel it. The way the space around you seems to open, to stretch, to gently push you forward into deeper quiet. You glide through this underdensity like a submarine moving through an abyss. There are galaxies here, yes, but fewer. They move with unusual patterns, drifting away from the void center like bubbles from a deep-sea vent. It's not darkness that defines this region, it's absence. Not the kind that swallows, but the kind that lets everything else move more freely. A kind of gravitational release. But even emptiness has its beauty. You find a lone galaxy drifting through this void. Not large, not dramatic. A modest spiral, its arms faded from age. You hover nearby, watching its slow spin. It has a tiny companion, a dwarf galaxy orbiting it like a younger sibling. Neither is headed anywhere urgent. They are together. That's enough. You realize, here in this underpopulated stretch of the universe, the isolation gives galaxies room to breathe. No tidal harassment, no mergers, just quiet evolution, like a poet in a cabin aging with grace. Eventually you leave even that behind. The void lightens, not in brightness, but in pressure. You begin to sense a change in the light around you. The galaxies that remain are different. Redder, simpler, older. You're nearing the cosmic boundary of star formation itself, where the first structures began to emerge. The light from these galaxies has taken over 13 billion years to reach you. You're not looking at distant places anymore. You're looking at distant times. And now, the edge of the observable universe begins to shimmer into view. Not a wall, but a slow fade into the earliest starlight. You're moving toward the cosmic horizon, the limit of what light has had time to reach us since the Big Bang. Beyond that line, the universe may well continue forever, but we can't see it. Not because we aren't looking, but because light simply hasn't had time to arrive. You press against that edge now and galaxies become proto-galaxies, clumps of matter forming in a universe still raw and hot. The structures here are smaller, more chaotic. Stars form rapidly, burn out quickly. There are few spirals, no elegant barred arms, just knots of gas and dark matter swirling together like wet paint. You drift through one such early structure, a clumpy, irregular galaxy lit by massive stars that won't last more than a few million years. One has already gone supernova, flinging its elements into space: carbon, iron, oxygen, the building blocks of everything you know. You move past another, where gas clouds flicker in and out of gravitational stability. These are the building blocks of future galaxies, and they are still learning the rules. You feel the sharpness of their light. Bluer, hotter, almost sterile. These stars haven't had time to make planets yet. They barely have time to settle before they explode. Then you see something else, a quasar brighter than any galaxy, its central black hole feeding greedily on infalling gas. The light from it has travelled almost the entire length of the universe's age. You're looking at an object that was already ancient before Earth existed, and even now its hunger remains vivid, its light unchanged. You hover near it, feeling the raw power radiating outward. Ultraviolet flares, X-rays, jets of plasma piercing the void like searchlights. You marvel that anything so far away can still shine this brightly. It's a lighthouse at the edge of knowing. Past the quasar, the fabric of space starts to thin into time. The light around you dims, not from distance, but from youth. You're nearing the epoch called rionization, the time when the first stars and galaxies ionize the intergalactic medium, making the universe transparent to light. Before this, it was a fog, an ocean of neutral hydrogen where light scattered and smothered. You pass through a cloud of that hydrogen now. It's cold, undisturbed, almost completely transparent, but you can feel its history. This is the stuff between the first stars, primordial matter that predated galaxies, predated metals, predated story. You're not gliding through space anymore, you're gliding through before. The galaxies here are flickering candles, brief, bright, wild. None of them will survive in the form you see them. They're going to merge, dissolve, collapse. Some will become parts of larger galaxies, others will be shredded into halos, but here now they glow with a kind of fearless youth. You see two merging even as you pass. No arms, no order, just gravity crashing raw materials together, and then light begins to vanish. You have reached the edge of what can be seen, the edge of the observable universe. Ahead of you is the cosmic microwave background, the fossil light from the Big Bang itself. Not stars, not galaxies, just a soup of radiation, redshifted into microwaves over 13.8 billion years. You glide into it like mist, like memory. It is not bright, but it is everywhere. This is not darkness, this is first light, stretched and cooled and slowed. You float inside it, and you're surrounded not by things, but by beginnings. The entire universe was once like this. No galaxies, no structure, just energy, waiting to settle into matter. This is the womb of everything you've passed through. Every star, every planet, every wandering thought. You're no longer in the place where galaxies shine. You're in the place where light itself began. And for a moment, you stop. There is nowhere farther to go, not in space, not in time. You have reached the first breath, the last light, the softest silence. You're drifting now within the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, cradled in the low, omnipresent hum of the cosmic microwave background, that final shimmer of light released when the universe first became transparent. It surrounds you like fog, like the gentle light beneath closed eyelids. This is not a place you see, but a moment you enter. Time slows here, not metaphorically, not poetically, but cosmologically. You are outside the age of galaxies now. You have floated past clusters and collisions, past spirals and mergers, past even the first bright stars. What surrounds you is the pale memory of heat, the universe as it was when it finally exhaled. It's quiet here, but not empty. The photons that bathe you have been travelling for nearly 13.8 billion years, cooling as the universe expanded, their wavelengths stretched until they became gentle microwaves, whispers in a vacuum. You're not flying through structure anymore, you're flying through history frozen into light. This is the surface of last scattering, the limit of what we can observe. Before this, light couldn't move freely. It was trapped in a dense plasma, constantly scattered by free electrons. But then, around 380,000 years after the Big Bang, things cooled just enough. The electrons paired with protons, forming neutral hydrogen. The fog lifted, and the universe began to shine. You drift through that shine now, not as a beam or a flash, but as a sea of gentle radiation. It is the same in every direction, nearly uniform, with only the faintest fluctuations, tiny temperature differences that would later become galaxies, clusters, stars, and eventually the eyes that would look back at them. You can feel those fluctuations ripple around you, like soft waves across the surface of a dark pond. Each ripple, each variation, a seed, a promise, the earliest fingerprint of gravity at work. You pass through one of these denser regions, a slightly warmer patch in the background, and you feel it like an echo, the hint of a future structure, a galaxy that hasn't yet formed. All of the brilliant spinning spirals you visited, all the great ellipticals and lopsided dwarfs, all of them were born from these quantum ripples. The universe didn't start with design. It started with imperfection, and those imperfections became beauty. You hover here for a while, taking it in. There is no up, no down, no forward or back, only temperature gradients stretched across billions of light years. The scale is incomprehensible, but the texture is gentle. The radiation washes over you in smooth layers. You begin to understand why astronomers speak of this not as a boundary, but as a veil, one that marks the edge of observable time, the point beyond which even light can't tell you what happened. But beyond this veil, something did happen. You feel it, like a shiver through the foundation of space. Not noise, not colour, something subtler, something older. You're now approaching the cosmic dark ages, the long, quiet stretch after the background light was released but before the first stars were born. A time where the universe had form but no fire. Hydrogen atoms drifted in thick, dark clouds, cooling slowly, untouched by starlight. There were no galaxies, no light, no warmth, except the residual glow of the Big Bang. This is the true void, not just of matter, but of metaphor. You're passing through an era where nothing burned. Everything waited. It is almost uncomfortably still. The universe, newly transparent, was vast but blind. There were no shadows because there was nothing to cast them. You're flying through this prelude, where hydrogen coalesced into filaments but did not yet ignite. Time itself seems slower here, stretched by the lack of change. There are no stars to measure against, just cold, neutral gas, slowly feeling the pull of gravity. And then, ahead, a flicker. One, then two. You've reached the end of the Dark Ages, the beginning of cosmic dawn, when the very first stars formed from pristine hydrogen and helium, collapsing under their own weight in the deepest parts of those early filaments. These stars are nothing like the ones you've seen. They are population 3 stars, vast and brief and hot beyond reason. Many are hundreds of times more massive than the sun, burning with a fierce ultraviolet light that changes everything. You approach one now, glowing like a match in an ocean of ink. It is blue-white, its surface roiling, its gravity barely holding its fury in place. It won't live long, a few million years perhaps. Then it will collapse, exploding in a supernova or forming a black hole, scattering heavier elements into the void. But for now, it shines, and around it, the universe begins to wake. You pass through a region newly lit by these stars. Their light begins to reionize the hydrogen around them, breaking atoms apart, changing the chemistry of the cosmos. You're watching the universe become transparent again, this time lit from within. Galaxies begin to assemble in the distance, though they are clumpy and chaotic, more like hot gas than graceful spirals. But the architecture is emerging. The universe is beginning to think in structure again. You see the early scaffolding, proto-galaxies, faint glows where matter has gathered, where light first began to escape gravity's grasp. You float through one of them. There are no planets, no heavy metals, no gold, no iron. These things haven't been made yet, but there are stars, and where there are stars, there is possibility. Historians still argue about how quickly these first structures formed, how many survived, whether dark matter dictated their formation or merely enabled it. But you're watching it happen now, not in simulation or theory, but in quiet reality. You are gliding through the first organized breath of the cosmos. And just beyond this blossoming epoch, you begin to see the return of something familiar. Galaxies. Primitive ones, yes. Compact. Jagged. Sometimes just bright knots of light held together by potential alone. But they are galaxies all the same. The first of their kind, and among them, one, small, irregular, just barely resolved, you pause. Not because it's different, but because it reminds you of all the others you've seen. This is the origin of the shapes you've followed. This is the moment before memory becomes legacy. You drift onward, slowly now, feeling the weight of the journey behind you. From the cosmic dawn to superclusters, from the Virgo cluster to the Great Attractor, from the Milky Way to microwave background, and now, here, where the light is youngest, where everything still waits to become, and so you pause. And for a long, long time you drift, in silence, in origin, in light. You're far beyond the present now, adrift in the earliest moments where structure first dared to form, where light had only just begun to fight against the overwhelming cold of the void. The galaxies around you are proto-things, more suggestion than shape, burning young and hard in a cosmos still learning how to arrange itself. Everything is hotter here, brighter, but not in the way you might expect. It's a brightness of urgency, of rapid change. The early universe is in a hurry. You can feel it. Stars are born and die in cosmic heartbeats. Gravity is pulling faster. There is no waiting in this place. You coast silently between clusters of these first galaxies, your path guided not by mass or map, but by intuition, by the undercurrent of expansion. The universe is still small, relatively speaking, though small here still means billions of light years across. You glide through a narrow corridor between forming structures, a path lined by cosmic debris, gas clouds that haven't yet found their fate, half-formed dark matter halos not yet populated by stars. You realize you're not just seeing the early universe, you're flying through its blueprint. You dip toward a denser region now, a knot of high-temperature activity, a protocluster. Not quite a galaxy cluster yet, but getting there. Here, the first major gravitational gatherings are forming, fueled by the raw abundance of hydrogen and helium. Inside, tiny galaxies collide, merge, rip each other apart and form again. It's chaotic, loud in the way a newborn scream is loud, not from volume, but from intensity. You hover at the edge, watching as several galaxies, each no larger than the Magellanic Clouds, spiral into one another, their gas clouds colliding in luminous bursts. There are no quiet spirals here, just clenched fists of gravity trying to become something more. One of these early galaxies catches your eye. It's small, irregular, but bursting with new stars. And not just stars, supermassive stars, hundreds of times the mass of our Sun. The kind that don't just end their lives in supernova, but impair in stability supernovae, explosions so powerful they leave behind no remnant. No neutron star, no black hole, just scattered elements flung into space like glitter. You float through the aftermath of one such explosion. Hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, heavy metals spread like ash across a lightless field. This is where the universe gets its ingredients. This is where everything begins to taste like potential. You drift away from the cluster, following the direction of increasing redshift. The deeper you go, the more stretched the light becomes. The photons you see now have been travelling for nearly the entire age of the universe. What began as ultraviolet has now shifted far into the infrared, barely clinging to visibility. You pass a region that contains one of the earliest known galaxies, faint, compact, older than anything that has ever seen Earth. Astronomers on your homeworld gave it a name, something like GN-Z11, discovered at redshift 11, which means its light began its journey when the universe was only a few 100 million years old. You pass it like a ghost, though in truth, it has long since evolved into something else, or vanished. The image you see is older than any continent, older than the solar system itself. You're flying not toward things, but toward light. This is not a tour of space. It is a tour of the earliest visible thought the universe ever had. And now, things change again. You reach a boundary, a line not drawn in space but in time, a veil of light that stretches across the cosmos like frost on glass. You're approaching the cosmic neutrino background. Even older than the microwave background, it formed mere seconds after the Big Bang. You can't see it, not with eyes or instruments, but here, in your dreamlike motion, you sense it. an ocean of ghostly particles that have been streaming through everything since time was measured in heartbeats. Neutrinos don't interact much. They pass through entire planets as though they aren't there, but they are everywhere. And here, this close to the beginning, you feel them as a kind of shimmer in your skin. The universe is now just seconds old. You pass through a dense field of radiation and free particles, quarks, gluons, electrons, blinking in and out of high-energy chaos. It is not yet matter as you know it. It is potential. The rules of physics are still stabilizing, locking into the symmetries and laws that will one day govern the motions of galaxies. The strong force, the weak force, electromagnetism, gravity, all of them beginning to separate like cooled metal forming rivulets. And then, before you know it, you arrive at the beginning. Or something so close to it there's barely a difference, the Planck epoch. The universe is less than 10 to the negative 43 seconds old. The temperature is beyond human numbers. Time, as a useful concept, is crumbling. There are no particles here, no atoms, not even quarks, just energy, curled, boiling. The universe is not expanding into space. Space itself is expanding. The rules aren't rules yet. They're habits, forming. And in this impossible moment you feel something shift. Not outward, inward. Because now there's nowhere left to go forward. You've reached the front wall of observability. This is not the beginning of things. This is the beginning of time itself. And yet, strangely, you don't feel the journey ending. You feel yourself slowing, coasting to a stop, not in space, but in thought. You look behind you, and it's all there. Every galaxy, every cluster, every luminous strand of the cosmic web, the Milky Way, Andromeda, Virgo, Laniakea, the Great Attractor, the first stars. You've crossed through everything the universe has ever made visible. And now, as you hover at the boundary, the silence grows lush. The darkness grows warm. It is not cold here. It is not distant. It is still. Because what you found, after crossing trillions of light years, diving into radiation and gas and gravity, is that the end of the observable universe is soft, not a wall, not a crash, but a hush, a long, eternal breath, the one the universe took before it began. You linger at the edge, not of space, not of light, but of comprehension. The observable universe, with all its drama and density and wonder, now lies behind you like a luminous trail stretching back across time. You've flown past superclusters and solitary stars, wandered through tidal streams and dark voids, drifted beside spiraling giants and galaxy ghosts. But now, at this farthest frontier, you've stepped outside the realm of galaxies and into the gentle hum beneath existence itself. What surrounds you now is not blackness, is not even silence in the traditional sense. It's something softer, a stillness so deep it becomes a sound, the sound of everything before it was anything. You've passed the limit of starlight, slipped beneath the microwave background, glided through the neutrino fog that shimmered out seconds after the Big Bang, and now there are no more particles, no more light, just you, hovering at the very lip of where time begins to count. Ahead lies the quantum foam, the tangled turbulence of space and time itself at the smallest conceivable scale. You can't see it, not really, but you sense it bubbling faintly, unpredictably. Here, the universe is not expanding. It's deciding whether to exist. This is the Planck scale, where our understanding of physics simply breaks. Time loses continuity. Space doesn't stretch, it fluctuates. Up becomes sideways. Energy surges and vanishes in the blink of something smaller than an eye. Historians and physicists still argue whether time even exists here, or whether it's something that emerges later like gravity or shape. You glide into this sea of unknowing, letting the laws of logic loosen around you. The world stops behaving. Position and momentum, not separate, distance, irrelevant. What was once a smooth timeline now warps and curls like heat shimmer on an infinite horizon. The very concepts you've used to navigate, mass, light, speed, melt into each other like candle wax in the sun. And through it all, one idea begins to unfold. This is not just the edge of what you can see. This is the edge of why you can see at all. Because before this moment, before even that first heartbeat of a second, something happened. Or maybe didn't happen. It's hard to tell from here. This is the realm of inflation, the theorized burst of exponential expansion that took the universe from subatomic to solar in a blink. You're drifting beside that instant now, trying to understand something that was over before time had the decency to introduce itself. You pass through a space where cause and effect swap places, where tiny fluctuations in the quantum soup swell to become entire galaxies billions of years later. Those small wrinkles you floated through in the microwave background, they were born here, in this unthinkably brief instant. And yet, in that fleeting moment, the shape of everything was written. The filaments, the voids, the clusters, the cold spots, you, all of it. And just as quickly as it started, it stops. Not gradually, but as if a switch were flipped. Inflation ends, and the universe begins to cool, to slow, to expand at a saner pace. And you begin to fall backward through it. Not in time, not exactly, but in memory. You see particles form, fundamental forces split, quarks condensing into protons, electrons orbiting newly born atoms. Matter starts to coalesce. The chaos begins to settle into rhythm, and from here, the light builds again. Not in bursts, in breaths. One, then another, and soon you're drifting back into the dawn of stars. Past the population 3 titans, past the first galaxies, past the mergers and the filament spines. The structure of the universe begins to reveal itself in reverse, like a tapestry being unstitched to show the threads underneath. Clusters fragment into their constituent galaxies. Galaxies unravel into gas and dark matter. Light unwinds itself from the grip of gravity, and slowly, almost reluctantly, you return to where you began. The Virgo cluster appears first, its elliptical giant still swirling. The Milky Way and Andromeda drift gently into view, suspended in their slow-motion collision dance. And there, our tiny solar system. That pale dot tucked into the Orion arm, a speck on a spiral, a home wrapped in layers of gravity and light. You float above it for a moment. After all that, after riding the filaments, dipping into voids, passing through the gravitational pull of the Great Attractor, coasting past the Shapley supercluster and back through ancient light, this is where you return. A small blue planet curled around an unremarkable star. And yet, it feels like enough. Because now, when you look up at the night sky, you see more than stars. You see scaffolding, you see history, entropy, gravity's brushstrokes stretching across billions of years. You see absence, and you understand how it sculpts presence. You see light, and you remember what had to die to make it. The journey through the observable universe isn't about where you go. It's about what changes in you as you move through it. And you've seen it all. The darkness and the fire, the bones and the breath, the beginning, the middle, and that soft end we're all slowly sliding toward. So now finally you let yourself rest. Let your velocity flatten, your thoughts slow, your focus blur at the edges. There is nowhere else to go tonight. You've flown through every galaxy in our observable universe. You've watched the lights rise and fall and rise again, and now it's time to let them fade. Let your breath lengthen, let your chest soften, let your thoughts go. You've travelled far enough for one night.